Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll start with the national anthem. Nigeria, we hail thee, our own and native land. No tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland.
That's it. Thank you. Have your seat, sir. Thank you, sir.
You can just go ahead. Good morning, class, mass, and ladies and gentlemen. We are warmly welcome to Town Commission, Women Agenda for Western Nigeria office. This is the 10th floor of Cocoa House, and this obviously this is the conference of Town Commission, and it's named after the pioneer DJ of Town Commission, Mr. who unfortunately left us in 2017, April precisely. So you're welcome, and you are here to celebrate one of the icons of the national icon. But I want to say that one of the fantastic Omolua, I mean to say that that is talking 60, and we want to appreciate him for his contribution not only to the region or as a country, even international, but because he's started from here and he has also done a lot for here, and we felt like, particularly in the establishment of Town Commission, and we felt that the best way we could do is to celebrate him, to honor him with this this summit or this conference, you know. And again, because he's also a scholar, I like to call him a philosopher king. But, you know, it's not like everybody knows that I'm a fan. I stand Fayemi everywhere as a political science student. You know, I came across philosopher king in the Plato's Republic, and since I've been following him, he has all the traits of a philosopher king, and there's no better way to celebrate the philosopher king on a landmark study like this than it's an intellectual conversation. You know, not where the merriment can come, but because it's signpost intellectualism, and we feel like the best way to celebrate it is to have this intellectual conversation around the subject. He is also pioneer, so to speak. You know, so we felt like, okay, everyone is talking about regional development commission, but some people conceived that idea long before Nigeria started talking about it, and we said that it is worthy to celebrate him on a special day like this, and we have brought very fantastic scholars to also have the conversations around the issue of regional integration or integrated development, so to speak. So you are most welcome, everyone. Thank you for honoring our invitation. As time goes on, we are going to mention names and recognize our dignitaries that have left everything Monday morning to be here. But before then, I will call on the General of the Commission, Dr. Kayode, to give a welcome remarks. Please,
It's an exciting day. The planning for this took about 10 days. Because it was 10 days. It started with, of course, we knew that this is the week of travel. And we told ourselves that we shouldn't just be a normal thing that those who gave back the idea of regional integration, those who saw ahead, maybe this is 2025, so maybe those who saw 15 years ahead, that at some point this country will arrive here. Let us celebrate. Again, I'm an unapologetic follower. I don't have to lie. It's true. I say this all the time. You see, we are in an environment where we struggle to celebrate excellence. At times, we find out that we celebrate the wrongs and we castigate the rights. But today, we told ourselves that there's no better way of celebrating someone who championed the cause of regional development as part of the growth of Nigeria. And for those who don't know, I have to say this. The idea itself, we need to tell when people come around to the office, we tell them that the idea of God not start from government. Came together as early as 2010. As early as 2011. Under the auspices then it was Afenifere Renewable ARG. Brought scholars, some of them politicians, commission, brought them together. And the driving force, the intellectual force behind it. So it's not an accident that we decided to be part, but we basically muzzled ourselves to be part of the celebration. We didn't even consult, of course we didn't consult. We didn't consult the organizers. He told us, in fact, when he told me on Friday that he will be here, I nearly said, oh God, it's in me. We were very excited. We said, give us part of this time, sir. And we want to say thank you, sir, for showing up. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Those who might have misconceptions. This is Western Nigeria, part of Nigeria. And over time, as an example, this is Cocoa House. We were told that the construction of Cocoa House started in 1978, and that it took about 7 years. So anytime I'm speaking with colleagues or visitors that come around, I tell them that if Cocoa House construction started in 1957 and it was commissioned in 1965, 57 to now is about 68 years. Construction started 7. It meant that probably by 1955, which is 70 years ago, some people conceptualized this idea. Because it wasn't 1965 and 1907 that they conceptualized the idea. So it meant that a group of people in Western Nigeria felt that we should have a structure like 70 years ago. That's food for thought. Because what we are then saying is that anytime people will say, oh, ideas will be, people with ideas that govern this space. So, once in a while, when we have, in quotes, philosopher kings, as Kayode said, once in a while, when we have people who have ideas that are developmental, find their way into government, the result of them going into government, when you now start saying things like Don Commission. But because of his position there, that he was also able to then, let me use the word railroad, his fellow governors in those days, for them to see the benefits of it. And thankfully, for the last 12 years that we have been here, every governor that's coming in, they've keyed into this. Because number one, we remain apolitical, ensure that we don't do politics. Tell everybody, the politics we play here is development. The only language we speak here is development. So whether you are PDP, APP, or NNP, or whatever, whenever they comes to matter of Dawn Commission, politics says something. Again, it shows the reasoning, it shows the intellectual capacity of someone like who was able to come. I mean, easily, his fellow governors could have said, I mean, a former governor once said he saw me as a function 3 years ago in Lagos. So I went to introduce myself. He said, I'm glad you guys are still there. And I thought it was just going to be a passing fad. That was what former governor in Southwest said. I thought it was just going to be a fad that will go away. As I said, when you have visionaries in governments, big institutions that outlive, that outlast you. Dr. Fayemi, I can assure you, sir, that this is our 12th year, and we know that this has come to stay. Thank you for your efforts. But for those who take that head-on commission, I tell people that it's a creation that came from outside, was then sold to governments. I thank you all for coming in to be part of this public discourse. And I can assure you that to be able to, we won't waste your time. We'll be very busy. Fayemi is not someone who is giving to the politics. I can assure you that we will have fantastic time because we brought in some of the best that we picked from our universities here. Again, one of the things we pride ourselves on at Dawn Commission is that we have a very good connection between the gown and Dawn Commission. So we make use of if UI, live, regularly. And I want to say thank you to the scholars that have come from this university because more often than not, they know we are poor. So they give their services for free most of the time. And said, welcome to this fantastic program.
Then tell us you have plan to run, like I have a winter picture of what's going to happen here this afternoon. So we, well, of course, just for the benefit of everyone, we are going to read the citation of Celebrant of Faith, and then that will follow by a keynote presentation by Professor Remy Aide, and then there will be a discussion thereafter, followed by the discussant and my colleague, Professor Rita, there will be conversations around the celebrant to also speak after the panel discussion. General, we will throw it open to general public and then I will run the session. So we've been talking about philosopher king, and I just want to say just briefly before I read the solution of Fayemi, they say that a philosopher king, according to Plato, is they are free from vices, that tempt others to abuse power, are intellectually superior, and are uniquely able to apply their knowledge for the good of the state. So if you discuss it, as I've read it out now, if I read the citation, you will see that the celebrant actually fits into the appellate of a philosopher king. So it's not just we are not just patronizing what he has done or what he's still doing and what we believe that he will still do in the future. It's still very young, so still just cross the age of Gen Z. So you still do many great. So please just allow me to read the citation of the subject. Throughout Nigerian history, few leaders have consistently demonstrated the courage, foresight, and resolve to pioneer transformative change, like Dr. John Kayode Fayemi, on the occasion of his death birthday, to celebrate a trailblazer whose life and work have been marked by a habitual embrace of pioneering roles in governance, advocacy, and development. I will illustrate this habitual embrace with 3 points. The establishment of Dawn Commission, like it has been mentioned earlier. Then the Western Nigerian Security Corps, that is codenamed Amotekun, and of course, the state membership of Open Government Partnership. The paradigm shift to Regional Development Commission. In 2024, Regional Development Commissions emerged as powerful instruments of national policy, reflecting a paradigm shift toward collaborative governance. The admission of His Excellency Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu embraced this model, transforming it from a passive interventionist mechanism into a strategic framework for equitable development. Yet, the seeds of this transformation were sown years earlier, not just by old ideas and rebuilding itself without like a decade ago. Regional integration as a development model was brought with controversy. It was often dismissed as a failed pro-Yoruba agenda or a covert attempt to return Nigeria to the regional federalism of the Federal Republic. In an atmosphere of this deep suspicion, few leaders dared to champion the cause, but Dr. Fayemi, undeterred by the potential political risk, emerged as a resolute advocate, recognizing regional integration as the key to unlocking Nigeria's immense economic potential. A pioneer of regional integration. In all the endeavors and achievements that the Creator has blessed him with, perhaps only his record as a thorn in the flesh of Abacha's military dictatorship could rival the strategic role Dr. Fayemi played in bringing to life a structure that became the first evidence of regional integration in Nigeria, the Development Agenda for Western Nigeria Commission. This achievement reflects his unwavering conviction that regional integration is the perfect model to unlock and unleash Nigeria's economic potential. Much of this foundational work was spearheaded by the Afenifere Renewal Group. We have the honor of the presence of the chairman of the group, Honorable Wale Osun. Please acknowledge the social Afenifere Renewal, a social political organization committed to the revitalization of the Southwest. As a founding member of the group, Dr. Fayemi played a crucial role in developing the roadmap, articulating its core principles, and advocating for its adoption. In 2012, at Lagos' iconic City Hall, the publication titled Development Agenda for Western Nigeria Strategy Roadmap was unveiled in a landmark event chaired by Mr. Fola Adiola, the co-founder of GT Bank. The roadmap represented a bold vision for the Southwest economic and social development. Following the unveiling, the governors of the 6 Southwest states unanimously embraced the document, translating its vision into reality through the establishment of the Dawn Commission. The commission not only pioneered regional integration in the Southwest, but also inspired national discourse on leveraging regional strengths for holistic development. The establishment of Amotekun, that's the second one. The first one I said, is the establishment of Dawn Commission, where he played a very critical role in coming to life of the Dawn Commission. And then the second one is of course, the establishment of Amotekun, a landmark in security governance. Dr. Fayemi played a pivotal role in addressing the security challenges facing the Southwest through the establishment of the Western Nigeria Security Network, codenamed Amotekun. The groundwork for Amotekun was laid in 2014 when the Dawn Commission developed a framework to strengthen law and order in the region. However, it wasn't until 2018, when insecurity surged across the Southwest, that the initiative gained momentum. While the late Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, the then chairman of the Southwest Governors Forum, became the public face of Amotekun, Dr. Fayemi played significant behind-the-scenes roles, providing strategic direction and advocacy to overcome the constitutional and political hurdles that threatened its implementation. Amotekun became a landmark achievement, paving the way for decentralized security structures within Nigeria's federal system and inspiring a constitutional reimagining of governance in the country. And the last one, which not the we just picked the 3 that we thought that they're just landmark in its contribution to development and governance in Nigeria and particularly Southwest region. Of course, the open government partnership. Dr. Fayemi's pioneering spirit extended beyond regional initiatives to governance innovation at state level. Under his leadership, Ekiti State became the first Southwest state to join the
open government partnership. Open government partnership, OGP, came into existence, I think, in 2016, and they were just with the focus of encouraging state government to be more transparent and accountable in administration of the states or of the country. It was national, but later it was allowed that sub-regional governments, sub-national government are able to join. And we're saying that, so Dawn Commission also facilitates or advocated for states adopting it in Southwest. And like we said, that Ekiti State, under the leadership of the celebrant, became the first state in Southwest, to join the open government partnership. It's an initiative aimed at enhancing transparency, accountability, and citizen participation in governance through technology. Through the OGP, Ekiti set new benchmarks in public service delivery, fostering a culture of accountability and ensuring that citizens played an active role in shaping policies that impacted their lives. The state's transparency initiative not only reduced waste and corruption, but also leveraged modern technology to transform public service. A legacy of visionary leadership. At every stage of his career, Dr. Fayemi has remained at the vanguard of innovation and reform, consistently taking on pioneering roles that challenge the status quo and inspire transformative change. Whether as a founding member of ARG, the architect of Dawn Commission, a behind-the-scenes strategist for Amotekun, or a champion of transparency through the OGP, he has left a legacy of both progressive leadership that continue to resonate across Nigeria. Please, a round of applause for our intelligence for giving contributions to our region and even our nation. Thank you so much, sir, for all that you are doing. And like I said, we still expect that you will do more, with you crossing the age of 60. So we'll move swiftly into the keynote address. The theme for this discourse, the theme for this discourse is Beyond Administrative Boundaries, Reimagining Nigeria's Development Through Regional Integration. And we'll have our keynote address, a scholar of repute and a mentor, even though maybe he does not know, but somebody that I look up to. If you remember, for those of us that followed him, he delivered his inaugural lecture in 2021, and in 2020, yes, okay, yeah, in 2021, and he's looking for it. If gold rust, what will iron do? Politicians, academics, and nation building. I was, I was fascinated with the topic. If gold rust, what will iron do? So, Professor Emmanuel Remiaide is a leading scholar in public institutions, governance, and public policy. As head of the Department of Political Science at the University of Ibadan, he was head of the Department of Political Science at the University of Ibadan. He has made significant contribution to democratic governance and institutions reform in Nigeria and beyond. A former Fulbright Fellow and visiting scholar at INEX Electoral Institute, he has consulted for ECOWAS, UNECA, and UNDP. His research and advisory roles have shaped policy discourse and strengthened governance frameworks across various levels. This is just an abridged version of who Professor Remiaide is. Please, a round of applause. We have other, we have Professor Abiodun Olawewo. He's a distinguished economist specializing in macro, labor, and development economics. He's a professor in the Department of Economics and Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Management Science at the University of Ibadan. Research has significantly influenced policy formulation in labor market, economic development, and macro stability. Through his scholarship and leadership, he continues to shape economic policies and drive sustainable development in Nigeria and beyond. Please, a round of applause. We also have Dr. E. Sewe Akubo. Thank you, sir. Dr. Sewe Akubo is a historian at Obafemi University, Lagos, specializing in intergroup relations, conflict management, and economic history. He holds a PhD from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and has consulted for institutions like the Kuka Center and Newmap. A prolific scholar with over 150 publications, he engages in international research and contributes to public discourse through various media platforms. Please, a round of applause for Paul. And we also have Professor Samuel Afolabi. Professor Olubemiga Samuel Afolabi is a distinguished scholar in political science with expertise in governance, international development, and regional integration. He has then BSc, MSc, and PhD in history science, and has esteemed fellowship, including the American Political Science Association, African Fellowship, and Ibrahim Governance in Africa Initiative Fellowship. His leadership includes serving as head of department in political science of Obafemi Awolowo University from 2020 to 2022. Please, round of applause for yourself. Now, we have the last but not the least is Mr. Ijaya Tahir. He's a PhD student and a lecturer in the Department of Political Science, University of Ibadan. Please, round of applause for So we brought in a young person so that you can have a blended conversation. And we also invited a lady, yes, so that we can balance the gender. Unfortunately, it didn't show up, so that I know that this Fayemi, the champion of it. So just to say that when they are looking at the pictures, they will not say that don't be money. We actually invited.
In fact, we were very sad when at the last minute she said, back to
so that we will not be dragged on social media. We are not sensitive. We are. No matter of fact, just continue. But we know that the ladies in the room will make up for that gap. So please, let's make welcome Professor Emmanuel Remi Aide. The also former Minister of Solid Minerals, and also the chairman of the Afenifere Renewal Group, the Director General of the Young Commission, my distinguished colleagues, and distinguished audience. So it's a pleasure to be here to give this speech for multiple reasons. The first reason is really that it's a pleasure to meet Dr. Fayemi again after a few days at the National Conference in Abuja. But much more than that, I've had the hope of actually working closely with him after his first term as governor of the Ekiti State, when there was a proposal that he will spend some time in the Department of Political Science at the University of Ibadan.
I know I'm an absentee.
The vice chancellor at that time, Professor Olayinka, already told me that I was going to work with you while you were at Ibadan. But before that, I actually had the chance to collaborate with Center for the Democratic Control of the Armed Forces. And I made 2 chapters to 2 books that they published. One on security sector reform in Nigeria and Indonesia, then another one, security sector governance reform in West Africa. And while I was working on those papers, I came across your works with Fumiolo Nishaki, which was a handbook of security sector reform. And then, of course, there's another one with Ojfu, security sector transformation in Africa.
And I also remember that because I taught at the University of Lagos before returning to Ibadan, during my interview, and they were asking some questions, I remember mentioning you as one of those scholars whose writings I found very inspiring. As a young man, I'm actually talking about 2004. You know, so it's really an honor to be here to lead the discussion. And I think the other thing is really that I'm very interested on the question of multi-level governance and the role of regional integration, especially what I call horizontal collaboration among states. Now, to put this discussion in perspective, I would like to start by drawing our attention back to the debate and controversies that came out of certain events that occurred last year in Nigeria. The first, of course, was the July 11 judgment of the Supreme Court, which raised the issue of the status of local government and how the resources allocated directly from the federation account should be channeled to local government. The second is the tax reform bill, which became very contentious, and the country was divided along regional lines in terms of position regarding the proposed bills. And then, of course, the role that the NEC, the National Economic Council, played in trying to bring the bill back for further consultation and discussion. Then, of course, the third development was the establishment of new regional development commission, one for the Southeast, and then, of course, the one for the Southwest. And the idea that every geopolitical zone should have a regional development commission. And that provoked debates about the relevance, appropriateness, and usefulness of regional development commissions. And I think that's the basis for which this discussion is raised. I want to say that it is really an issue of intergovernmental relations, which is not peculiar to Nigeria. And that intergovernmental relation is very fundamental to getting federalism work in terms of service delivery and in terms of effective governance. In fact, some experts in intergovernmental relations says it is intergovernmental relations that gets the job done, whatever the job is in a federal system. And when you look at the situation in Nigeria, it seems that role of intergovernmental relations is not very well appreciated. You will see that we don't really have provisions within the constitutions that talks about intergovernmental collaboration and cooperation. It seems at every point in time, what we experience is some kind of antagonism between the government, the federal government, and the constituent states when it comes to development issues, as if federalism is not about collaboration and cooperation. It's just only about checking the excessive or the overreach of the federal government in terms of encroachment on state powers or local government powers. But in fact, intergovernmental relations is very essential. And if you go to the constitution of Ethiopia, for instance, you find that it creates room for all kinds of horizontal collaboration in terms of multilateral collaboration or even bilateral collaboration among the constituent states. But it's beginning to emerge in Nigeria, but it's been very slow. And I was really excited when Oyo State, for instance, is collaborating with Osun State, you know, this road, this Iwo Road development. So I think it's really important that we put this on the front burner so that Nigerians can begin to see how important this horizontal collaboration is to the working of a federal system. In fact, my central argument is really that the health of our federation will become very visible if we begin to see voluntary collaborative arrangements at the horizontal level, rather than the federal government bringing states together to collaborate. We have states, especially those within the same geographical area, coming together to develop and carry out development projects. And I said that that is a great indicator of the health of our federal system, rather than this grandstanding that we have become accustomed to. Then the last part is really that regional commissions are actually a manifestation of the need for intergovernmental collaboration, and that they are very important if they are properly constituted to ensure that regional interests are represented and that national decision-making responds to the needs and aspirations of the various regions. And they are also essential for coordinating policies, addressing regional issues, and ensuring balanced development across the federation. Now, this discussion about regional integration and the role of development commission has a lot of theoretical discourse within the discourse of federalism itself, and then within the discourse of regional development. There are quite a number of theoretical offerings that we can look at in dealing with this. The first has to do with the idea of fiscal federalism. When we talk about fiscal federalism, there's a lot of issues involved in terms of revenue, raising revenue, taking revenue responsibilities in terms of tax assignments, in terms of expenditure responsibilities, in terms of revenue sharing, and so on and so forth. So we can look at regional development commissions from that perspective. But the other one is to look at it from the political economy of federalism, which I've done again and again. And I think I've followed the tradition of Douglas North, Barry Wengers, and so on, who have looked at federalism from the political economy perspective. And a lot of ideas have come from them in terms of characterizing the structure and interaction within a federal system. And we see a number of innovative ideas in that regard. And one of two very important ideas that I often teach my students about the political economy of federalism is the idea of experimental federalism, which is really that because we have multiple states, we don't have to test run a new policy at the national level. We can either try it at the local government level or try it at the state level. And then when we see their benefit and we are fine-tuning, we can then escalate it across the country, reducing the cost of experimenting. The other one is competitive federalism, which is the idea that in federal system, there should be some kind of competition in terms of citizens' interest, in terms of investment, and so on and so forth, so that each state tries to make its environment better than the other in order to attract investment, in order to attract both local and foreign investment, and also residency by wealthy citizens, regardless of where they come from within the country. Those kind of principles has created a situation where competition is healthy now. And I think it's very important if we want to replace the current cake-sharing competition that characterizes our federal system. And Thibault's idea of competitive federalism and other forms of federalism, sometimes we talk about market-friendly federalism, become very, very important. Another approach to this issue we can also see from the idea of network science when we talk about economic growth and development. And it derives from the whole idea of multi-level governance, which we see especially in the development in the European Union. And the whole idea that decentralization is not a peculiar thing associated with federalism alone. It's essentially very difficult to find any form of governance system that does not have multiple layers of governance. And what it then means is that you don't look at solving problems in terms of only the relationship or the powers between the levels of government. You look at it in terms of the ability to collaborate to solve problems. Now, this collaboration is not just collaboration between governments only. It's collaboration with civil society, with private sector, and in fact, with traditional institutions and individuals in trying to solve problems. I remember writing an essay recently on the Supreme Court judgment, where I made an argument about not looking at local government in terms of which level of government should control it. You know, this whole argument that local government is a baby of state government. Federal government should have no role in it. We missed the point completely. What we should focus on will be how can local government be truly local, accountable to local people, expressing the interests and aspirations of local people. And now both federal government and state government can facilitate that process. That's the argument. Of course, we also know that politics is about power, politics is about resources, and usually there will always be conflicts of interest, and there will be need to manage that interest among the various actors in the multi-tier system of government that we have. So the last part, of course, for multi-level governance is what we call the complexity theory or adaptive governance system, which flows from the discussion that I've had about decentralization and decentralization embedded in the consciousness of governance, and realization that if we have multiple governmental levels, what is really important is how we can make development respond to the needs of various parts of the country. And these needs have elements that are peculiar, and then, of course, elements that are uniform, that we share in common. And what it then means is that governance constantly have to be retuned and reformed in order to be adapted to responding to some of these challenges. Challenges of development at both the common interest level and then at the level of the peculiarities of the various constituent units, regions, and local government. So it is within this context that we can look at the various factors that are implicated when we are dealing with the question of development commissions. Now, development commissions are things that are common in non-centralized systems like the federal system that we have in Nigeria. And because federal systems are riddled with conflicts, disputes around funding, and so on and so forth, there's need for policy and mechanism that coordinates activities. And this coordination does not have to be at the national level only. It has to happen both at the national level, at the state level, and also as well at the regional level. Because of certain peculiarities of federal system, if you go to the United States, for instance, you will find that there are regional development commissions. And some of them are not designed to incorporate states. They are designed by the parts of the states that fall within the problem that has to be resolved. In other words, some of them are geographical peculiarities that do not necessarily encompass all states. For instance, one of the very common or very well known is the Appalachian Regional Commission, which is reflects the mountainous part of the United States that spread across 13 states. Now, that commission addresses communities and settlements that are located within that geographical space, and it goes across 13 states. So it is not a commission of 13 states. I think it's important for us to emphasize that. It's a commission that covers that Appalachian region, and this region happens to cover 13 states. In other words, regional development commissions, they are very important players in federal system, and they are supposed to help, facilitate collaboration and cooperation, not just between the states and federal government, but among states that share some common purposes. So it's important for maintaining stability. It's important for bringing stakeholders together, and citizens to participate in addressing common problems. And it emphasizes the fact that there can be framework that emphasizes cooperation rather than competition, that acknowledges that successful governance is built on dialogue, on partnership, rather than rigid power structures, and that the commissions can be bridges, that ensure coordination, fostering regional development across states in a system. Now, the commissions address specific regional issues. They ensure that local interests are integrated into national policy making and therefore promote national unity. They help formulate policies, provide ideas how resources should be better allocated. They coordinate development efforts and even mediate disputes between regional and federal authorities. So they are not just bureaucratic bodies. They are platforms where stakeholders collaborate to find solutions to shared challenges. And they function in different ways. Some are set up by the national government. Some are created by states coming together. And then others are developed from non-governmental initiatives, citizens, civil society organizations, seeing a problem, cooperating and encouraging collaboration so that such issues can be resolved. It can relate to environmental management, resource distribution, or even large-scale development projects. So across Federation, there are many RDCs. In the United States, I mentioned the Appalachian Regional Commission, and then of course there's also the Delta Regional Authority. In Australia, we have similar organization like the Council of Australian Governments, and then we also have in Canada the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency. Of course, we also have the Western Economic Diversification Canada. All of these work to stimulate growth, to ensure dialogue within the union, and that cooperation, show that cooperation matters for common interests. Now, let's come to Nigeria to see the Nigerian experience, because Nigeria has also had a very long experience with such commission. The first time we tried to do that was in the 1950s as we moved into independence. And then the Willing Commission was set up to look at the problem of minority. One of the outcomes of the investigation of the Willing Commission, it was set up what they call the Niger Delta Development Board. That board, of course, if you trace the history, you talk about UNPADEC, then you talk about the NDDC, and then you now talk about the Ministry of the Niger Delta. And that is the first case I would study in terms of our experience with Regional Development Commission. And one important thing is that it was set up by the federal government. It was designed to deal with the peculiarities of the Niger Delta region. And remember, as at the time this was being done, oil has not become the major source of resources for Nigeria. So it's not as if it came because of oil. In fact, it preceded because of the peculiar geographical terrain of the Niger Delta, which was considered very difficult, a very challenging development area. So the board was set up, to address some of those issues in terms of safeguards to protect minority rights, and also to see how the regions can be developed. So, but much was not done before the Civil War, because what the idea at that time was to bring the Western region and the Eastern region together to collaborate around developing that area, because it is the two regions that were covered by the Niger Delta region. But of course, not much was happening. And eventually, in 1976, the military decided, to take a major steps to rejig that effort. So they set up the Niger Delta River Basin Development Board to address the crisis in the region. But of course, nothing much was achieved before it was then expanded when I think under the Shagari government, they now create 11 region river basin development authority. Now take note of that. Just as the thing started with one region, it now spread to all part of the country, because it's something that we have to balance. We have to make sure everybody has something from it. Then, of course, this remained a problem. In fact, the situation in Niger Delta worsened when oil became the major source of income, and there was this agitation for addressing externalities, addressing environmental degradation, and all of that. So I think in 1992, under the military government, they set up the Oil Minerals Producing Areas Development Commission, which is the first time it took the title commission, a regional commission. Of course, we know what happened. We can look at the Ogoni problem, the militancy, and all of that, which shows very clearly that it didn't really achieve its major goal, because it was supposed to focus on infrastructural projects like roads, electricity, and water supply in that region. So in response to the failure of the FOMPADEC, the Niger Delta Development Commission was established in 2000 under the Obasanjo government. And of course, the mandate again is not specifically very different from FOMPADEC, but it was supposed to guide the development of the region. In fact, there was supposed to be a Niger Delta Development Master Plan, and all kinds of projects were supposed to be involved in order to be able to address that issue. But it didn't work, and the Yar'Adua came and replaced it and created the Niger Delta Ministry, with the ND becoming a parastatal under that ministry. Now we have moved on, because in 2017, following the experience in the Niger Delta, they thought they can also use the same kind of approach to deal with the problem in the Northeast. And so in 2017, Buhari set up the Northeast Development Commission to address the devastating impact of insurgency and counterinsurgency operations in the region. So President Tinubu is therefore building on the precedent in setting up a development commission for all states geopolitical zones. And now it's raising issues about how successful are the previous experience with a development commission set up by the federal government. Now, while we can debate and talk about all of this, of course, the midterm expenditure framework has allocated about 4.26 trillion as what will be spent for the sixth commission. I don't really have to talk much because most of the scandals and problems associated with these commissions are in the media. You remember off that mic in the National Assembly. Yeah, that. Now, that's one version of development commission in Nigeria. The federal government initiating a commission and using it as an intervention, to address problems. The other one, of course, is the Dawn Commission, which is not from the federal government. It's an initiative among states of the Southwest. And the idea, that reminds me, at the Center for Sustainable Development, I think about 2014 or so, we actually wrote a policy brief. I don't know if you have seen it, I think on a regional integration, looking at the initiative of the Dawn Commission from the Center for Sustainable Development at the University of Ibadan. So, and I did the first draft of that policy brief, proposing how the Dawn Commission can actually be organized and run to promote regional development commission. Now, I think there will be a discussion in details about the Dawn Commission, but I would just like to say that it's a different model for the federal government initiative, and it falls within what I described as the horizontal initiative, state to state kind of collaboration, which is voluntary. That voluntariness runs through both the operation, the financing, and the implementation of policies that come from the Dawn Commission. And we are beginning to see also from the experience of the Dawn Commission, after over a decade, some of the challenges that they faced in terms of resources, in terms of politics among the states, in terms of interests of various stakeholders, how they gel and how they divert, and the implication they have for running a commission like the Dawn Commission. Now, I will then go on to talk about general challenges of commissions like this, and then, of course, the success factors. In terms of challenges, of course, you always have what can be described as jurisdictional conflicts, because there's the relationship between federal and regional government, and even among the regional government. Balancing authority and responsibility can lead to disputes. At both levels of government, we have overlapping interests and conflicting priorities. So if the Dawn Commission have to deal with that kind of balance, they can't be caught in conflict among the supporting states. Now, of course, you have resource constraints, limited funding, and sometimes limited resources can hinder the effectiveness of RDCs. So without adequate financial support, well-designed initiative can be a problem. In fact, sometimes you have to struggle to get them off the ground. This challenge is often very acute in regions with limited economic capacity and high levels of poverty. The third challenge is that of political interference, that political agendas can sometimes undermine the acclaimed impartiality and effectiveness of regional development commission, especially when commissions are influenced by short-term political goals rather than long-term development objectives. So the ability to deliver meaningful results can be compromised. I mean, you talked about, somebody talked a moment ago about a governor saying he thought that it should just be a flash in the pan, because for him, it's just a matter of short-term political calculation. Yeah, we also have coordination issues that have multiple states buying into the system. How do you, keep them abreast of what you are doing, where you want to go, and so on and so forth. And the last part, of course, which is been demonstrated, especially with commissions run by the federal government, is corruption and mismanagement. It can be a problem. And I can tell you, I work at the Development Policy Center before I joined the university. It's not only in government, the problems of corruption can arise. Sometimes conflict of personal ambition can undermine the running of think tanks. So these are very challenging problems that we need to handle. Of course, when you go to the NDDC and the other federal government information, you have a lot of gory stories to tell. Now, let me focus on the success factors of regional development commission. One, they must have very clear mandate and objective. When they do, everybody knows what they are doing and then what to expect from them. And so people can then channel support towards the specific goals that they are going to play. And that is a big problem for Dawn, because Dawn looks like an umbrella organization. It says regional integration, but there are so many things on the pie when you talk about regional integration. And so people can ask, what are they really doing? What's regional integration? And then, of course, you're talking about market, you're talking about certain initiatives that cut across the states, but there are also initiatives that may be confined to one state that you also carry out. So how do you, make your mandate very clear? I see that you have a strategic document and all of that. Of course, you need strong legal and institutional framework, a robust foundation that ensures that you have the kind of authority that you require to be able to reach out. I looked at the evolution of the African School of Governance in Kigali, and they started with the idea, oh, we have a dean of the school, but eventually they ended up with a president of the school, because they are thinking in terms of, what do we expect the leader of that kind of school to look like, and what level of operation do we expect him, a level of interaction do we expect from him? So if you expect him, for instance, to deal with African presidents, that title seems more closer to the expectation. And they have now today the president of the African School of Governance. Then you look at funding and resources, and I think this is very critical. If you have a clear mandate and you can connect with appropriate sources of funding, including donor agencies, because they are actually available to support a lot of initiatives. Even the Northeast Development Commission, you see what the World Bank is doing there, what other donors are also doing there. Funding is a very important. Without long-term plan or financial resources, you can't also do long-term plans without interruption. Then collaborative governance. Within the organization itself, I work for one organization in Kenya, in Nairobi. I would call it the Partnership for African Social and Governance Research. When they have internal problems, I ask them, you can't partner with each other here. So how can you then create partners across Africa? So this spirit of partnership, must permeate the organization itself, and then they radiate outside into the work that you do. Without that kind of leadership, leadership becomes very critical. Without that kind of leadership that's open, that's accountable, that is inclusive and embracing openness, you really will have issues achieving collaborative governance. Of course, regional integration is there. And the vital part is also what we call data-informed policymaking or evidence-informed policymaking. That you must be a leader, you must be an exemplar of evidence-based research policymaking, both within the way you run your organization and your capacity to give advice. I know you were referring to my inaugural lecture. That's the spirit, that you can't have a university with all of these resources that is unable to demonstrate that it can use its own knowledge to solve its own problem. Now, if the university can't solve their own problem, which is the question I pose, how can outsiders have confidence that they should go to the university when they have problems? For me, it's the greatest dilemma of the Nigerian university system. And that's why I brought, because I was in Delaware when Obama was being sworn in during his first term. And I realized that at that time, the governor of Delaware was also being sworn in. And the swearing in of the governor was not done in the stadium. It was done in the hall, like the Trenchard Hall of the university. So I saw firsthand that interaction, that recognition that, we are governing this state together, both the politicians and the academic, because again, the governor himself is sworn in inside the university. So right from day one, is engaging the university system. So there must also be community participation and ownership. And then, of course, when we focus on capacity building for members of the commission, and also capacity building where the regional government or state needs such capacity. So training programs, technical assistance, knowledge sharing are very important if you must succeed with the initiative. And of course, we talked about adaptability and innovation. And I mentioned that perspective in terms of the theoretical approach. But one thing that is very important, which must always emphasize, is political will, the determination of the collaborating states to keep it, to make it work, to support it, and to fund it is very important. And I think the last thing I will talk about here is the long-term vision and strategic planning for the commission, for the RCD. So it's very important that regional development commissions have long-term vision and strategy, and that they work through it, outline clear pathways for achieving goals, and that long-term planning ensures continuity and consistency in development. Now, the point that I've been talking about is really that governance and institutions play very important roles in development. This has been shown by the writings of the Blasnot and Asemeglu, whether we are looking at how nations fail, or we are looking at the role of institutions in national development. One very important institution is the federal system. The federal system and the intergovernmental decisions that are embedded in them. There's a lot of studies, some of which I have contributed myself, concerning how do we configure the federal system to achieve the objective that we have. And what I'm saying in essence is that all this debate about, oh, federal system are like this, the true federalism is somewhere in the United States, it's a waste of time. What we are supposed to do is look at how our configuration of federal system have ability to achieve set goals. That's the basis of whether our federalism is working or not. But not copying what has happened somewhere, as if somebody somewhere has a model federal system that works for everybody. There's no model federal system anywhere in the world. Now, regional development commission are very important, and they offer targeted approach to addressing specific challenges, but their proliferation may risk exacerbating bureaucratic inefficiencies and deepening existing governance challenges. And I make this point that a more sustainable solution lies in strengthening existing institutions, improving coordination between federal and state government, and ensuring transparent and effective allocation of resources to meet the needs of the region. Regional Development Commission cannot replace states and local government. It's important for us to take that very seriously. So rather than relying on government intervention, which often characterized by politics of resource sharing and cake sharing, I think the emphasis should be on horizontal cooperation among states. Even within states, local government should also be asked to collaborate. Because of the researching that has been done previously, our local governments are fragmented. If you come to Ibadan, for instance, yes, you can't see the city government. You have one south local government, north local government, southwest local, all kinds of local government, as you are moving within neighborhoods. And then you ask yourself, where is coordination? Where is collaboration? So we need to do all of that, because collaboration at the regional level can drive sustainable development initiatives through joint projects that benefit multiple states, projects that benefit multiple local governments. And we have also seen that corruption can be a challenge when it is federal government that is doing establishing those commissions. So I think that if we are not careful, creating more regional commissions may fail to deliver the desired development outcomes and could further strain Nigeria's already fragile governance system. And the Niger Delta Commission is a very clear example. It has also created a problem of how are you going to put these things together when you are already talking about reducing government. On the one hand, you want to implement the original report. On another hand, you are creating new commissions. How do they gel? I think that it's important for us to address this issue. So the emphasis for me is voluntary collaboration among states to pursue development projects that benefit their citizens across shared territorial spaces. Such collaboration should not be limited to challenging or blocking federal government overreach, as is often the case in the past. Instead, it should be to mobilize, to engage in interstate development initiatives, enhance service delivery, promote economic growth, and improve the quality of life of citizens. And I think the DOM Commission is a typical example that can be built on. So states within region can collaborate on infrastructure projects such as transportation network, energy grids, or agricultural hubs that transcend individual state boundaries. By pooling resources and expertise, we could achieve economies of scale, attract investment, and implement projects that will be difficult to execute independently. So the approach will not only foster regional integration, but also strengthen the overall fabric of Nigerian federalism. So in general, to sum up, why the establishment of Regional Development Commission may seem like a solution to Nigerian developmental challenges, it risks perpetuating the politics of division and resource sharing that have hindered progress. The shift towards production-focused policy, coupled with voluntary interstate collaboration, offers a more sustainable path going forward. So by embracing laboratory federalism and fostering positive competition, Nigeria can move beyond the zero-sum politics of cake sharing and build a more unified, prosperous, and resilient nation. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Aide. You have given a very clear and lucid theoretical foundation for regional development agencies. You have also given us something we have not contacted you for here at Dawn, the diagnostics of Dawn Commission. So we thank you for that as well. From the idea of the foundational frameworks that RDCs must be built on top. Collaboration has been the center of everything you've spoken about. Voluntary collaboration at the horizontal level within the different multi-governance layers of governance, the balance and coordination that RDCs provide for state actions. Also, you spoke about the adaptive governance system, where governance should be fluid and flexible so that it can cater for the ever-changing dynamics of the environment and the beneficiaries as well. Also, RDCs are meant to function properly in non-centralized states, as in a federalism such as us. There are innovations in governance, and they are specific in their orientations. I enjoy the fact that you actually broadened our mind that RDCs are actually be created for specific issues like geographical issues. So states along the same maybe coastal lines or experiencing the same challenges can have RDCs created specifically just for them. Basically, we don't have enough RDCs in Nigeria as of now, and it need not be something from the national government, a top-down approach. It can be a bottom-up approach as well. CSOs can create RDCs. The multi-stakeholder grid of governance, any actor on that value chain can create RDCs. You emphasize the collaborative nature of RDCs, the dialogue orientation, bridge building orientation, and of course that RDCs, national government and civil society organizations, should all work together. In the later part of your address, you spoke about the need for us to understand the configurations of our federalism, because you can hardly look at any seminar paper or any newspaper article on the politics of Nigeria, and everybody's trying to define what true federalism is, but like you have said, what we should actually do is try to understand our own federalism and how we can harness, the benefits within our system to solve our problems. With regards to the Dawn Commission, you gave examples of some of the regional development commissions within the country, from OMPADEC, who later became the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, to the Ministry of the Niger Delta, which is to address specific developmental issues in the Niger Delta part of the country. Then 2017 to the Northeast Development Commission, which was created as a result of insecurity in the northeastern region of the country as well. And presently, probably for political expediency and not in Aso Rock, every zone now seems to be clamoring or will probably have their own regional development agency in a system that has promised to reduce governance. We are creating mega agencies again. Are they competing with states? Are states meant to compete with them? Are they meant to compete with local government? There's so many questions, that remain unanswered, so to speak. And for the Dawn Commission, you have illustrated some of the critical success factors for an agency such as this, and some of the challenges which we will face. Hence the diagnostics that I talked about: jurisdictional issues, overlapping interests, resource constraints in terms of funding, even technology, human resource, political interference. We're lucky here. Most of all the states within the Dunn Commission jurisdiction, they do not allow politics to get into that. I think we have His Excellency Dr. Fayemi to thank for that. They laid the foundation for that. So for Dunn Commission, irrespective of the political party at the helm of affairs in any of the states, there's something that brings them together here. And so far, we've been very lucky not to have that challenge. Coordination issues as well, because for us here at the Commission, we have our agenda, we have our mandates, but we also have to work with public servants who have to work with the individual manifestos of the states that they're working in. So at times there are challenges here and there, and of course corruption. Where Dunn Commission is transparent, there's no corruption here. I can assure you of that. There's nothing to take. There's no money here. like one of the leaders in the Southwest, I believe that was we went to see him in his hometown in Shara when he was still alive. Let's DJ, I can't remember. Saladin, he said our job is the missionary work. Of course, I didn't like it. I don't want to be a missionary. But it's the passion, is what drives us here. Some of the success factors for us here are a clear mandate, which is important. And like you said, if you look at the amount of things, the amount of issues and sectors that the Commission has to focus on, they can be quite huge, And I don't envy the DG. The governor of Oyo State can call him today that he's talking about agriculture. Lagos can call him talking about transport. Ekiti can call him talking about mining. And he has to answer to all these bosses, And this strong legal and institutional framework as well, that needs to be strengthened. The collaborative spirit is essential among the 6 states for the Commission to achieve its goals. Then, of course, capacity building for the Commission staff. I think I speak on behalf of the staff here that some of us like to go to Harvard as well. If when the Commission can afford it. But of course, we will get there. We will get there. We leverage the universities in the region. We leverage partnership, and of course, the internet has made it possible. For us to bridge that gap, and we don't have to travel anywhere. We can always, get some of these things done from here. So basically, the center of your keynote address is collaboration. Collaboration within the framework of adaptive leadership. So thank you very much, sir. The speech will be distributed to everyone who is here. We'll all have copies of it. And we'll keep engaging you, sir, especially that area of diagnostics of Dunn Commission. You have diagnosed also, you provide solutions as well. So thank you so much, sir. A round of applause for our keynote. Yeah. The compare, who was meant to do his job and do his job for him, he had the digestive malfunction. So I believe he's back now. So take over.
Friends, is soon come back to moderate the panel session, but just to recognize some of our, everybody is very important, because this is strictly by invitation. So if you want to be here, then it means that you are very, very important. But just our fathers in the house, just to acknowledge them. Of course, I mentioned Honorable Wale Oshun the other time, the chairman of Afenifere Renewal Group, ARG, that champion and consistent. The round of applause for he was also the chief whip at the point in time, the House of Rep of Federal Republic of Nigeria. And we also have our daddy 70, because just last week or 2 weeks ago we went to celebrate the 70th birthday. Sir Benga Adebusi. And Dr. Tindarigola stepped out. He's also one of our, what we call teleguides there, those who use for free. Let me put it that way. You don't have money, so you can't call them consultant. So we call them teleguide, the special name for them. So that just so it's one of them. It's one of them. And also, so like I said, I want to recognize Modupe also. Modupe Itoshio is also a Greek entrepreneur. Please acknowledge that. One of us. Sorry, like I said, everybody is important, but just this I can recognize. Right, I'll come back to the rest of that. So we're going to move into the panel session. You know, as the paper, like as it was summarized by Prince Adetayo Adele-Kadedoyin, the discussants are going to speak to it. So they will have like 5 minutes to make their opening remarks, and then interaction can follow with the moderator. Please let me welcome the moderator for the session, Prince Adetayo Adele-Kadedoyin.
Hello once again. I think we shouldn't forget that we are celebrating a birthday today. It's important so that we don't get lost in all the academic work we're doing here. You know, we haven't even sang happy birthday, but don't forget. Yeah, but you know, I want Orisha, Oritisha, His Excellency, so he can afford to have a happy birthday song even before his birthday. These are, you know, so we'll compare. I hope you are listening to me. So we move straight into the main business of today, which is the panel discussion. But I was thinking, because I saw His Excellency taking notes, probably he wanted to give us a few comments on the keynote address. We should just go on. Okay, all right. So for our panel discussions here today, we have Professor Samuel Olugbinga Afolabi. Please let everybody see you so they can. Mr. Tahir Ijaya. Professor Abiodun Folawewo. Dr. Emmanuel Afibo. You're welcome, sir. The DG of Don is meant to be an analyst, but you cannot be a guest at the party you are hosting. So before I start with our invited panelists, I think the DG will set the tone for the panel discussions. You know, we've heard what Professor Kayode has said. We listened to him aptly, and he has given a broad-based theoretical underpinning for regional development agencies. Dr. Shayela is DG of Don Commission. The commission should be about 12 years old now. And, you know, over the years, you've been at the helm of affairs of these agencies. You understand the challenges, the opportunities. So my question to you, sir, is this. Southwest Nigeria has a very long history of regional cooperation when we had regional governments. So I assume that it was easier then. So from this historical context, sir, can you inform us how you've been able to leverage that history in, you know, approaching regional integration in contemporary times within Nigeria? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tayo. As you rightly said, it hasn't been the easiest of tasks trying to cobble relationships among the 6 states. Don't forget that over time, the military governments that we had divided us. I tend to use balkanized, but someone said, please stop using balkanized. So they divided us into separate entities. So initially, when Dawn started, I can tell you that it wasn't a tea party trying to get the states to even work together. Of course, the governors had no issues, but at the administrative level, in fact, some states, some civil servants in some states would say, as an example. But you see, over time, what we did was basically to appeal to their sense of history. We ensured that we explained to them that this used to be Western Nigeria. From Okeado there, is that Okeado? No, from Okebola. The late sage, Obafemi Awolowo, administered present-day 8 states, not just 6, 8, inclusive of today's Delta and Edo, before Midwest was created. And the 6 states worked together, and the 8 states worked under his administration. I'm not sure he had up to 14 or 12. They were not called ministers, I forgot what they were called. Anyway, so when we started this job, they were called ministers. Thank you, sir. So they were called ministers. And what we told them is, look, the late Diko, God bless him, God said, look, Agbajowo, we used that several times. Agbajowo la fi soya. And so anytime we met with the states, what we were doing initially was say, look, the reason Dawn Commission has been set up, it's not to take your powers away from your states and bring it back to a central entity. Nothing like that. What we are saying is that we gain more traction when the 6 of us can leverage on our strengths, when the 6 of us can think together and then go back to our individual states to implement. And one of the things we also said is, look, we understand the individual peculiarities. Of course, we speak the same language. Of course, our cultures are similar. But we did say that we understand that there are individual peculiarities. So we are not trying to do a one-size-fits-all. But we are saying that there are several areas where if we sit together and push this idea of regional cooperation. So I say all the time that even before you talk of integration, let us even cooperate. Regional cooperation. Let's do things together in education. Let's do things together in security. I mean, one of the things it was like, it wasn't in the press when it happened during the COVID era. I remember very well, sir, that the federal government announced that we're not going to do WAEC that particular year because of COVID. And I remember that it was Dawn Commission that quickly brought together all the education commissioners. We brought them together via Zoom and said, look, this region can't afford not to do WAEC in a particular year. We met, we agreed as a block, as a BLOC, and of course, we came out with a statement. The region said, look, you might afford in your own state where you are giving us 100 candidates per year, but in a state that is giving us 70,000, we can't afford to miss a year. So the 6 states collectively made a pronouncement to the Federal Minister of Education then. Of course, I remember I got a call from the Federal Ministry in Abuja that, look, this is the way we want to go. Why are you guys? And I said, look, this is our reason for doing this. It was Dawn Commission that coordinated that brought out that approach. The states were able to speak with one voice. So by the time they all went to Abuja to have a meeting, this region spoke with a voice that, look, we must have WAEC. You might not want to have WAEC. Of course we want, because from this part, we spoke with one voice. For us, that's a major plus, major achievement when you're talking of regional cooperation. Of course, we all know Amoteco. He came out of here. And again, thanks to the efforts of Dr. Fayemi and his colleagues, today, I remember Attorney General Malami in those days. Well, they were vehemently opposed to it. But because, again, we had the region that said, enough is enough. This is what we want to do. And we were speaking collectively in unison. Of course, we established it. And today, what are we seeing? Other regions are doing the same thing. It shows that, of course, there have been challenges along the way. Some have said, how can you don't she? Some even erroneously think that Dawn Commission is a project implementing agency. And I said, no, we don't do projects. Well, thankfully, so that nobody will say, I need the contract. But we explain to them that we come up with ideas, we generate ideas. And at times, the ideas are for the 6 states, but several times we're even working with individual states, not just the 6 states. That's part of what we call regional coordination. And the states then copy each other. We have what we call the community of practice. So for our budget and finance commissioners, Agric as an example, the last 6 months has been fantastic with our Agric commissioners. When the governors met in June last year, created the platform, and probably every 2 weeks, we're getting updates from our commissioners so that we know what is happening. They were sharing ideas, copying each other, sharing best practices. That's what we have been doing over time. And that's why we've been able, because we're able to disabuse the minds of the states that it isn't trying to bring back another central government, but it is more of trying to collaborate to ensure that we fast track development. And more is still going to come. Professor Isaac Adewale led a process for us about a year and a half ago, where we developed a health blueprint for the region. It's been circulated. We were told by WHO that this probably is the most comprehensive health blueprint ever to come out of sub-Saharan Africa. Fantastic document. It was Professor Isaac that led the process for us. These are some of the things we do. And I'm grateful again that the governors, their political hat, they leave it in their offices when it comes to matter of Dawn Commission or regional integration. So it has helped, but of course, a lot more needs to be done. And we are actually looking forward to the coming of Southwest Development Commission. I say this because we've used the term here that they will be the money men. So all the ideas that we have generated here that needs money to push, maybe, just maybe, they will understand that they don't need to start from ground zero. They have money. I saw the budget that was allocated for this year, 500 billion, 498 billion to be precise. I said, well, that's fine. That's a good way to start. The template for development, we have it here. And hopefully we'll be able to collaborate with them and ensure that we don't repeat the mistakes of the NDDCs of this world. We have said to them that, well, I told my governors that we will not allow them to, it shouldn't be an agency that will come and start digging boreholes in Ikpenidu or Otano. We will ensure, or we'll try to explain to them that we need projects that resonate regionally. We've mentioned transportation, agric, power. You know, even if those are the three areas they concentrate all their money on, trust me, they will have succeeded. So it hasn't been El Dorado, it hasn't been the plain sailing, but 12 years down the road, one can say that the 6 states now understand what it means to work together. Lagos has been fantastic, particularly in the last 4 years. Lagos has really, really now keyed into the project, and that excites us as well. Thank you, Tyler.
Remember the days of the Attorney General of the Federation, Malami, when we were at the formation of Amotekun. And at that launch there in Ibadan, I think it was 2019, there's a particular phrase that Dr. Fayemi used that, you know, I'm always looking for an opportunity to use that phrase. Confidence building mechanism. You know, in everything I do, in my family, at work, I always keep at the back of my mind that everything must be a confidence building mechanism for my beneficiaries. So thank you so much for that particular phrase. Nigeria is a very politically charged environment, you know, and it's a potpourri of overlapping interests. I would like Dr. Akubo to please help us understand how regional development commissions or agencies can function optimally without being drawn into partisan politics while trying to achieve their developmental objectives. You know, given the fact that there are so many interests in the country, both political, religious, cultural, even here within the Southwest, the issue that religious tensions are rife, political tensions are there. It's not unique to us alone. But as regional development commissions whose objectives are meant to be, watertight and focused, how are they expected? What are the guiding frameworks do you think would help them navigate these murky waters of overlapping interests to achieve their objective? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I standing on existing protocols and also wanting to associate with the celebrant, not too close, but the highest we the closest we've gone was 2020, after your famous speech in Ariwa House, when you became the grandson of the Saudana. And those of us who are around there, associating with the History Department and Ariwa House, we clapped and say, this is another son of Saudana. And so greetings from Ariwa House and Saudana and all that grandchildren of Saudana. We are really proud of you. In fact, they said I should tell you something, but we'll see before the end of it. That's one of the grandson of Saudana. Maybe let me make it public. Will be celebrated sometime in September. And that is the legendary radical scholar, Y.B. Usman, who will be 20 years after his death. He died sometime 2005. And so the children and grandchildren of Saudana, they are planning something like that in September. That is Bala Usman 20 years after. So we'll find a way of getting across to you, but they just say I should just tell you ahead as a guy. Now, I think the major problem with the operations of the Regional Development Commission is the confusion in how and what people think of that. And that has to do with the issue of regionalization itself, how it came to be. If you go through the documents of history, you will discover that the regional group or region itself came up as one of the seats used by the colonial masters themselves to bring us together. Not that we have not been together, we have always been together. I mean, the terrain of what constitutes Nigeria today has been one where people have interacted meaningfully and freely. And so, but by the time they came in, there was this series of amalgamation that came to a climax in 1914, which gives the impression that that is what constitutes Nigeria. But at the end of the day, that was the amalgamation that brought the North and South together. But along the line, we went further. We had the Northern region, and the Eastern region. But again, after the Willings Commission thing, we had the Midwest region. And so, going around that, instead of having what would really constitute a regional development commission, like the keynotes and the first speaker, my brother Ayede, said, it's shock I can pronounce that name. When they say when I say Ayede, I say it's not Ayede, it's Ayede. It's Ayede. Okay, we'll see that. So now, instead of having what we call the genuine Regional Development Commission, we fell into the trap of what we call the Political Regional Development Commission. That which would have tried to really bring the people together. And I think that was what the military under General Yakubu Gowon tried to correct. But in an attempt to correct it, we got deeper in the muddy waters, because the intention was, okay, if you have the 3 regions, which must be the Hausa, the Northern region, the Southern region, and the Eastern region, which today for some people constitute it's either you are Yoruba, you are Igbo, you are Hausa. And so when they say, are you where you say you are Nigerian? Are you Igbo? You say no. Are you Hausa? You say no. Are you Yoruba? You say no. Then who are you? Because for them, that is the picture. And so the military government tried to create states. And that the intention of the states was to make sure these regional groups
transcend beyond ethnic boundaries by making sure states were created to transcend boundaries. And you see states that are not within the same area having sharing, which is what probably the American model my brother tried explaining. But unfortunately, it did not work again. And so we kept going deeper. And so it was not surprising to those of us in history department or the scholars of history, when instead of having genuine situation like that, we fell into the trap of what now constitutes each group wanting to have its own political regional development commission. But then, like I said, people will always ask, if that was the case, then how did the first regional bodies and group succeed? Of course, where we are standing today, like I told my brother and friend, Professor Folabi, when we were coming here, I said the last time I came here, I came closest was CBN, and that was about 20 or 20 something years back, came around. So this is my first time coming here. And if an edifice like this is standing, that was built then, I'm sure we don't have structures like this now without constant maintenance. In fact, driving from Ife to this place, I was pitying his tire. At a point, I said, look at how the cars are dancing along the road, which means for those of us, if I brought my car that has no balance, probably I would have been dancing too and the rest. But thank God he has a better car, and that was why we decided to use his own. Now, but if you look at the situation, what was it? Why did they succeed? That was because the founding fathers, as they were called, and they end that because of the nationalist spirits that was in them. And that is the fact that they recognized the fact that it was between us and them. That is, we're taking back our own heritage, our people, our power, our destiny back into our hands. And so they were able to do much. But if you look at it then, even at that before that period, there was this 10 years plan that was drawn from the late 1950s or thereabout, which means we had a systematic situation that did not just transfer or create things based on political affiliation or association, but rather based on plans. And at that point, there were certain things that were well mentioned, that this must be the case for any group to succeed, for the regional groups to succeed. And one, commitment of the fund to creating more knowledge on available raw materials. One, commitment of the fund of improving communication. Commitment of the fund to generating production for exports. Then commitment of fund to creating more schools, hospitals, dispensaries, and clinics. So it was well spelled out. It was not just handing over money to some people. There were commitments there. Commitments were made. And if you look at it, part of, even towards the end of the colonial rule, there were funds that were allocated for development research. It was well spelled out. Development research. What was that research meant to be? It was not about Tea Party, but ability for those who are involved to go into deep research on basic needs. What do the people need? Not what they want or what they wanted, but what they need, what the environment requires. How do you create this group? And so it was made clearly, it was clear, the roadmap was clear. A 10-year development program and development research commission or development research with money given to it. And so it was like that. But then suddenly, at the point of when after the founding fathers laid that foundation and we kept moving up to the military period, of course, one area where probably we got it right, but obviously because the military was not so much interested in this issue of focusing on commissions, but rather building unity as a result of the crisis of the Civil War. Remember the 3 Rs and the rest. So there was no much emphasis on this issue of regional commission or regional development. Rather, issues were coming up, rehabilitation, reconstruction, and so on. But again, at the end, before the military could exit or exited, we had creation of more states. So that at the end of the day, what would have been emphasized with the coming of what the founding fathers, the foundation they laid, got lost. And so at the end of the day, what we now started having were, again, as I said, political regional development commissions, where people were just there to grab money and spend it. Now, again, it is not that people don't want to really support the regional development commission, but it is based on the fear of the experience they've had over the years. That is, that people, the commissions are no longer responsive and responsible and have refused to. In fact, if you look at the laws, the law that signed in, even the most recent one, the word there, the law itself, the way they could spend money, people started asking questions. Is there no issue of responsibility or accountability? Of course, like we've been made to understand, which is everywhere. By the time the EFCC chairman before now looked into the books of the NDDC, we are told of a lot of projects that were there that were not done. In fact, so massive corruption, like my brother reminded us, off the mic. That was when the issue of off the mic came in, because they could not stand it. Even review by international bodies of the Northeastern Development Commission shows that it was not really giving what it was asked to do. So the truth is that the massive corruption that was there. And so if you take me back to this issue of what constitutes it, how can we work now? Like I said, that commitment as shown in the early years must be there. You remember, some people will say that the problem with the regional thing was that the colonial government and the earliest government were interacting with just the traditional leaders. That was it, because that is the real meaning of democracy, that government should be there. And we heard of cases where kings were deposed and were held accountable. And I think that was what Buhari, though we are not encouraging military rule, but it's got that was what he was still thinking of when he came back in the early 1980s, when some leaders were jailed for up to 200 years and so on and so forth. That was what, because for as far as it's concerned, there must be this commitment, which must make the people work. And that really made the people work because they were in touch with the grassroots. And like my brother said at the beginning, the ability to look at what is the connectivity between the local government. What is really local government? If you talk of local government now, at times local government has become something that has become like a gift. You see local government being created left, right, and center without even looking at the resources. What do these people really need this? So again, like I said, they were able, there has not been so much synergy between what really constitutes the regional development committee and what it should be. And so as a result of that, we have had so much proliferation. And my own submission on this is that if we really want to get it right, the spirit of nationalism, which made some people to earn the title founding fathers, should be reawakened and should be recalled. We should reinvoke it. In Africa, we invoke. Let us reinvoke that spirit, that our leaders should have that. Then there should be real commitment, accessibility to the people. Remember when this issue of NDDC was being challenged? Some people who were there then chairing it, they were saying no, that was not a redevelopment commission, it was resource-based commission. And some of us were asking, what is the difference between 6 and half a dozen? If you cannot manage 6, how do you manage half a dozen? So the issue of accountability, that people should be held responsible and should be made to account for what they have spent, should come in, and that government should desist from, whether government, individuals, or so on, should desist from creating a regional development group, because we want to balance it. That has always been the problem of Nigeria, that you have this here, and so we must have it here. I remember sometime when I was migrating from the south, from the north down to the south, I saw Fadama 3 or Fadama 4. By that time, those of my brothers in the north had not even finished Fadama 2. I remember asking my cousin in East and then in Edo, and asking, Uncle, this Fadama 4, I be 3 thing. He said, Fadama, it means say, when the government will just bring money, when we collect our, will they marry wife, will they buy more cars? And for him, and I said, how do you get it? He said, they said that they do it for north now. So if they do it for north, we must get our own for south. So when you end up having this duplication of bodies, duplication of commission, duplication of committee, we will never move until and unless we learn to situate it within basic necessities of the people, by the people, and for the people. We will continue to get it wrong. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. One of the things you focused on in your response to the question was the issue of theory to practice.
Yeah.
Regional development commissions, from what the Kayode just spoke about, are meant to be specific, but here they seem to be more political in nature rather than solution oriented. Well, if you live in an environment where polygamy is rife, that polygamy, it should happen in every other thing we are doing. So, in addressing that, I would like to call on Professor Afolabi, to help us address this issue of theory to practice. How would you assess the transition from theoretical models of integration to practical implementation in Africa and in Nigeria, in particular, within the context of the ever-evolving political, economic, and social dynamics? Theory to practice. We do a lot of theoretical thinking, the academia especially, but when it comes to practice, we seem to see different things. So how do you assess that transition? What is going wrong? Where exactly are we missing the point? Where is it that the bridge is not properly built? Let us understand this, your assessment of this transitioning from theory to practice in the creation and functioning of regional development agencies.
Distinguished guest of honor, His Excellency Dr. Fayemi, the daddies in the house, esteemed colleagues on the high table, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, I will take our time to look at the theoretical foundations. Answer the question of translating theory to practice. Now, let me just give a brief note that Dr. Fayemi may not know me, but I know him when he was at CDD, Center for Democracy and Development. And that time, as a young graduate, I went to Lagos to look for a job. So it was at CDD, but later, of course, I got to work with them. Then they moved to Abuja, Jibo, Idayat, and the rest of them. So since then, I've followed up with him. And then in 2013, I got this Mo Ibrahim School of Oriental and African Studies Fellowship. And Oloni Shaki was also there as one of the instructors. And again, she mentioned Prof. or Dr. Fayemi. So I've always followed his progress, his trajectory over the years, and of course of his wife, who has done a lot for us in Ife, especially on gender issues. So you are most welcome, sir, and happy birthday. So for us, Development is in any human society is a many-sided process at the level of the individual. It implies increased skill, capacity for freedom, creativity, self-discipline, responsibility, and material well-being. At the level of the society, you look at per capita income, the GDP, the GNI, and infrastructure. These are key indicators when you measure development. So at whatever level, the consensus is that man is central to the development. Now, we also should know that when we talk about development, there's also the opposite. And when you look at the politics of development and underdevelopment, and that's underdevelopment. Now, there's a state that is called undeveloped, and then we talk about underdevelopment. And so when we talk about development itself, we should have a framework in mind that speaks to development, undevelopment, and underdevelopment. Of course, in literature, we just talk about development and underdevelopment. But also, we should also take note that development is a subjective matter and is prone to value judgment, because what is development to one might not be the same to the other person. Now, in terms of the historical overview of regional integration and development, we need to have a small conceptualization, and that's to look at the positive and negative side. For me, when you talk about development, from theory to practice, you need to have certain indicators. And those indicators I will mention as we go along. So for the historical overview, the issue of development started after the Second World War, and that coincided with the period of Nigeria pre-independence. And of course, that is shaped by deep economic disparities and scattered or uneven development. And of course, that has led to different theories and attempts at addressing this shortage or these shortcomings. In a way, the regional integration is more than just an economic strategy. In Nigeria, it's actually a survival imperative. So the conception of regional integration, encapsulates a deliberate collaboration among states within a defined geographical zone or entity towards shared economic growth, infrastructural development, and enhanced policy coordination. Historically, Nigeria's development has always been bound to federal allocations and state-centric governance, and yet this has not yielded anything meaningful, because we still have a state of underdevelopment across the nation. So what's the administrative boundaries, which are drawn more for political convenience rather than economic coherence, have fractured regional markets, discouraged large-scale industrial collaboration, and stifled seamless movement of goods and services, and of course, talent across the regions. And so this needed to be revisited, and that's why I'm here. So it is therefore hard to undertake a very brief historical evolution of regional integration and development and the theories that underline that foundation. Prof has mentioned some of these theories, so I won't dwell too much on them. And so therefore, that's the focus of this paper. Now, for us in political science, we say a theory is a set of real-life situations. Of course, it relies on ontology. Sorry that I'm sounding academic, but it relies on ontology, methodology, and epistemology, because that gives us the conception of what reality composed of what is development, and how do we translate theory to practice. Now, when we look at theories that undergird or underline development, the first one is to look at the growth theory. This was championed by Perozzi and argued that regional development does not occur in a vacuum, but rather it's a mix of economic policies, economic forces, and historical conditions. Again, we've neglected that, and we've not really looked at how do we look at our economic situations, our historical conditions to shape our current realities. This theory, of course, assumes that there's a trickle-down effect that has often failed in practice, particularly in regions with weak institutional capacity. You have seen that in the North, I've seen that across this country. Of course, in contrast to that is the dependency theory, a variant of which Prof has shared, and that exposes of how Nigeria economic structure, which is deeply tied to global commodity markets, has also shaped our governance structures and, of course, our economic outlooks. In 2014, Afolabi and Mimiko wrote a book on what if things fall apart, globalization and economic development in Africa. And of course, that has led some of us to talk about decoloniality. Again, decolonizing our mentality, decolonizing our structures and institutions as a way to make sure that what we are having as development is home-based and localized. And that is very key going forward. Now, there are other theories, new regionalism, for example, that has also come up and have shifted focus to cooperation-driven development. Again, Prof has mentioned that cooperative federalism, that is new regionalism. That's a theory. So this theoretical perspective underlie why regional integration, looking at Oyo State and Osun State, how do they collaborate, looking at the strengths of the two states, for example, and how to shape development so that the local communities can benefit. Jokingly, I mean, some time ago, 2 weeks ago, we were having discussions about recruitment, and somebody said, Osun or Oyo, and somebody said, why don't you go and stay between Igbo, and that is the boundary between Oyo and Osun. So you just stay your one leg in Oyo, another leg in Osun. If it's Osun State University, you get the admission. If it's again, looking at how people can collaborate. Also, we also have economic integration models, which provides insights into Nigeria, how Nigeria and regions can maximize its regional potential. Functional integration, which emphasizes cooperation based on shared economic strengths, suggests that regions like Southwest could leverage technology and finance, while the North Central, for example, focuses on agricultural business and processes. Again, you focus on your strengths. For example, in Ekiti, and I must doff my cap to again for Dr. Fayemi, they have the highest, when you talk about in terms of PhD, professors, and what have you, is because there's investment on education. That's a big capital, social capital, educational capital. So comparative advantage theory, when you look at the works of Ricardo, reinforces this logic, arguing that economic zones should specialize in sectors where the old natural edge, whether in manufacturing, in mining, in agriculture, this is much better than duplicating effort across all states. So Nigeria geopolitical zones already possesses the fundamental ingredients for economic clustering. But these administrative divisions, of course, for political convenience, continue to stifle collaborations. And therefore, the South-South, for example, in spite of its wealth, remain overtly reliant on crude oils, neglecting value-added industry that could drive employment. So without a deliberate framework that is conceived from within, like the Dawn, then we continue to have regional development commissions that relies more on federal handout, which Professor Ayede called cake sharing, continue to share cake. And of course, it's not going to get to any point that will, advance development. We also have regional innovation systems theory that talks about the process of innovation within a specific geographical location. When you look at the works of Lodge et al., regional development can improve economic, social, and environmental conditions. And of course, the impact of regional development commissions on innovation has been the subject of several articles. When you look at empirical studies, whether Backerman, whether Bart et al., they've talked about how innovations can drive, and which is where Dawn has come in, giving us the blueprint, giving us the framework for development in the Southwest. Also, we also have this endogenous growth theory that talks about local peculiarities, local strengths, local dynamics that should be focused on. And lastly, we have the human capital theory, which provides a relevant framework for understanding the role of education and skills. As we speak today, more than 10.4 million Nigerian children are out of school. What, for example, is the Southwest doing? We have children on the move. We have child on the streets. We have children begging. It's becoming even rampant in Oyo State now. How do we address all these challenges? So evidence from research shows that regions with higher levels of education and skills tend to have higher levels of growth and development. So we quickly move to evolution. So in terms of the evolution, we noted here that regional integration has a very long, deep historical roots, of course, stretching back to pre-colonial trade, pre-colonial times, and networks that connected the various groups through commerce, culture, and shared economic interests. Again, that has been mentioned by Professor Ayede. So we already have networks, and this is what has reinforced the operation, the creation and the operation of regional development commissions. And so for Nigeria at independence, there was an attempt to balance national unity with regional autonomy, of course, leading to creation of powerful regions under the 1960 and 1963 constitutions, and of course, spearheaded even before independence by Awolowo, that's Obafemi Awolowo, that has been part of the Yoruba thought-provoking enterprise. That how do we create development? Of course, that's what led to the creation of the now Obafemi Awolowo University, then known as University of Ife. And I do tell myself, I said, look, this is the brain work of someone that could see far into the future. And of course, like has been said, Dr. Fayemi also fits into that mood. The ability to see to the future and come up with plans to engender development within the region. So we have always have this concept of development in the region, especially the Western region. And of course, if you look at the works of Forrest and Ethel, we talk about what Awolowo was able to do. And of course, this structure has faced growing political tensions, again, because of, political differences, because even in the Southwest, you have APC, you have PDP, you have all kinds of political affiliation. So there's these growing tensions, growing political tensions. And of course, during the early independence period, it culminated in the military regime of coup of 1966. And of course, the subsequent shift to centralization. Even though we say on paper we run federalism, but all of us know that what we practice is more of centralized government. And that is why there's a query, there's a query on the establishment of these RDCs, because it keeps coming from the federal government. And of course, we are beginning to see waste. We are beginning to see corruption. When we talk about corruption, there's a way we look at it. What is the risk of corruption happening? And you keep seeing it from the federal. Federal is the one establishing, federal is the one giving this. The only region now without RDC is not central. And so you begin to wonder, is this actually bringing in the necessary development in view of the monies, in view of the funds that have been spent? These are the questions. How good are they in terms of policy frameworks, in terms of policy initiatives, in terms of actionable policy recommendations and implementations? Because when you talk about policy, you talk about 3 stages: policy formulation, policy implementation, and policy evaluation. Have there been justification? Have there been justification for money that has been so allocated and spent? Is this RDCs? These are questions, and that's why it's a theoretical excursion. Are these RDCs? Are they not just drain pipes for political patronage, elite fund sharing, or like one of our old professors will say, crude accumulation of state wealth? Are they not just drain pipes? These are questions that we need to ask. So in response to all these economic dislocations caused by centralized state fragmentation and centralized governance, Nigeria has continued to witness underdevelopment. Instead of development, we are witnessing underdevelopment. But the Dawn Commission, not because they are here, has tried to champion, because Dawn itself is a localized framework or agency to drive development in the Southwest, unlike the one imposed or the one given from the federal government. So in conclusion, what are the practical steps to translate theory to practice? There's need, even within the Dawn, for institutional and policy reforms. We need to reform. We need to start re-strategizing, because the Dawn of 10 years ago should be different from the Dawn of today, because things have changed. Things have changed from when Dawn was initially created. There's a need for a new policy framework, a new institutional framework to address emergent realities. And that's why I talk about ontology. What is reality? That's what ontology says. What are the new realities that are with us now? So to drive meaningful development, we need institutional policy reforms. Of course, those granting commissions autonomy, it should go beyond that. It should be that commission is able to come up with actionable frameworks that leverage on the best practices now, and of course that harnesses local solution. Also very significant is the alignment of state, federal, and regional strategies. Again, Prof mentioned that. That's to ensure that policies complement rather than policies compete with one another. It should complement, because we are one people. We are one people. Sometimes people say Oyo. Yes, Oyo people in Oyo State, Oyo people in Osho State, Oyo people, even in Ondo. We have the effects, but some of us are Oyos. So we have Oyo all over the place. You have the Jebus all over the place. Again, I don't want to go into the history of Yoruba, but that's the truth, that we have people across the zones that is just artificial to them. Especially if you get to, for example, close to Ondo State, I've forgotten the name now. You have the one in Ondo, you have another one in Osun. Owena, exactly. You have one. And I see them most of the time. They just cross over. They just cross over from one side to the other. It's the state that has divided them, but they are not divided. It's still Owena. Owena, okay. Owena and Ishale. It doesn't change anything. So we should also know that beyond physical infrastructure, it's also this human capacity development. We need that human capacity. We should not rest that, oh, the Southwest, we have one of the best indices to measure human development. We should not rest. Like I said, we are beginning to have a lot of out-of-school children. We did a work with UNICEF some time ago, and there's one that is ongoing now with Ministry of Education, that we are beginning to see a higher rate of boys dropping out of school, occurring in the Southwest, not in the North. Like I said, Nigeria has one of the most high rates of out-of-school children, and it's occurring now in the Southwest. So we need that to focus more on human capital development in a sustainable way with sustainable investment. And this Dawn and the Southwest Commission should prioritize. Now, we also need, and I must mention this before I leave, that we also need a more enhanced synergy between the town and the gown. There's a lot of things that goes on, and there's no foundation, there's no framework to connect theory with practice. If you go ahead without having thoughts, theories, you may get to a point you get stuck because you have not thought through. So there should be a more synergy between the town and the gown. And this is very essential. And so in conclusion, Nigeria's development story cannot be written with the same fragmented and state-centric approach. It must undergo a new revision, not just in abstract idea, but a most pragmatic route to sustainable development, harnessing local solutions, and of course, blending it with the will to develop. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Falabi. One of the key points you made was the need for institutional and policy reforms. And of course, like you put it rightly, the Dawn Commission mandate for 10 years ago should not be the same for today. In Nigeria, we have a lot of diverse problems. There are a number of regional development commissions, and we have done here. There's a Braced Commission in the South as well. In the Southeast, they have SERIDEC. Then there are the ones from the federal government, the NDDC and the NEDC. My point for discussion for Mr. Tahi Ijaya is how can we leverage the regional development commissions or agencies all around the country so that one of their outputs can be better integrated into national policy? Because these are the agencies that are very close to people. These are the agencies that are very specific in their outputs. For instance, the Dawn Commission here are our stakeholder grid. You know, we work with development partners, federal government, state governments, civil society organization, faith-based institutions. So what we see here on the ground might not be able, those in Abuja might not be able to see it. So how can we better integrate, you know, some of our outputs into national policy making, especially in areas that focus on national cohesion, education, and other critical sectors of the Nigerian life? Thank you.
Thank you very much. When I got to know about this event, I was told that I'll be a rapporteur. So when the invitation letter came, I saw you'll be a discussant. And I asked myself, how is it possible? Some would say politics are moral, politics is immoral, blah, blah. But the fact is that if that is the way for all these countries all around the world, then nothing good will come out of politics. But politics can be good. Politics can serve everybody. And this is where we need to bring morality back into politics. There must be red lines. There must be some things that we as a people must say, no, this is too much. There must be actions that we must condemn. So we must bring morality back into politics. We must know the red lines that must not be crossed. And there must be consequences for bad and destructive behaviors. And dishonesty is very important. So these are the things we have to take into cognizance to actually benefit properly from the output of this regional development commission. But also we have to understand that this regional benefit to actually increase or to achieve better outcomes, we have to understand that this regional commission or each region must also must also collaborate. There must be like inter-regional collaboration and so on and so forth. And there are existing framework to actually achieve that or to strengthen that inter-regional collaboration. And one of which is National Economic Council, which I believe comprised of the federal government, the president, and various state governments. We also have Nigerian Governors Forum. And I think Nigerian State Peer Review Mechanism is also a very good framework. I don't even know if that is working. But also, more importantly, especially for this development commission, for them to collaborate properly, this can be done through the Ministry of Regional Development, since this is the parent ministry that is overseeing this commission. You can find a way, create framework and policy, or specific issue areas, maybe on agriculture, education, maybe infrastructure development, and so on and so forth, whereby these development commissions can collaborate and improve the lot of their people. Okay, there are specific examples of inter-regional collaboration that have been happening over the years that we can leverage on. We can just increase or scale those kind of collaboration to the regional level. I think we all know about the lake rise between Kebbi State government and Lagos State government. These are some of the things that we can look into, we can replicate, and so on and so forth. There's also in 2024, I think it was the NESG summit or something like that. The Kwara State governor said something about Kwara, Niger, and Oyo State collaborating when it comes to security, because of the insecurity in the north, especially in the rural area in Niger State. They had to collaborate. The three states had to collaborate because, I mean, Ogbomoso is also 5 minutes to Ilorin, so it's clear. So why is interregional cooperation actually very important? Why is it very important? I will end with this. But let me paint a picture for us. Kogi State is so important significantly. Geographically, it's so important. It is the only state in Nigeria that shares border with 10 other states. A state sharing border with 10 states. And that means Kogi State is connected to 4 out of the 6 geopolitical zones we have in Nigeria. That is the South-South, the Southeast, the Southwest, and the North-Central. And what this means is that a destabilized Kogi State means destabilization of 4 out of the 6 geopolitical zones we have in Nigeria. This, just ruminate on this, think about it, just for you to have a feel of how important it is for regions to collaborate. So in summary or in conclusion, Regional Development Commission, they have their purpose, but there are also obstacles and challenges that we have to take note of. We must find solutions to these challenges to avoid repeating the failure of the past. Otherwise, we just keep creating agencies and formulating policy without achieving any significant development strides. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gaya. This is like a dress rehearsal for your PhD. Don't worry. If you are not giving an academic PhD, don't commission will give you another. Thank you. Yeah, the final discussant we have today on the panel is Professor Folawewo. I would like you to do a reimagining of the future of regional integration, especially in Southwest Nigeria. How can the region become a model for regional integration, not just within Nigeria, but across Africa, the African continent, and even beyond? And what areas do you think we should focus on, considering the ever-changing national priorities and global changes as well? For instance, in the United States of America right now, there's a policy shift. They're becoming a bit more insular with President Trump, the immigration policies, the tariffs here and there, and people have started to look back home. Just last year, they called it Dirty December. 90 billion naira was spent in Lagos, Ondo, and Delta, I think, the three states combined. And a lot of people, and it's just about the money, people are looking at reaffirming their cultural ties again. So how can agencies like Dawn Commission, what do you imagine? Where do you think we should be in 10 to 15 years? I want you to do a reimagining of our future of the commission like Dawn Commission for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Your Excellency, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. I think this will be the first time I've been getting very close to you. It is a privilege. I want to thank the Dawn Commission for putting this together. I want to wish you happy birthday in advance, sir. Allah will grant you long life and good health, and so that you continue to do your good work and then contribute to the development of this great country. All right, having said that, let me say this. Usually when you are asked to discuss a paper, then the first thing that came to my mind is there is going to be a keynote address. I've never seen the keynote address, so what am I to discuss? But of course, by the time the lecture was given and the discussion started, I said, well, I don't actually need to see the paper. Now, the previous discussants have done a great job. And then my assignment is so simple. Thank you for that simple question. But I am not a political scientist, and I am not an historian, but I am a development economist. So I think it's a very apt question for you to ask. Now, let me quickly say this. Globally, the best way of pushing development is through cooperation, through integration. And that is why you see different continents coming together to form different types of regional integration in order to push forward their development agenda. And of course, if we come to Africa, you see a lot of, in fact, all of us, we were just baffled that 3 countries left ECOWAS. Now, there was a thinking, a vision behind ECOWAS. If you leave ECOWAS, you go to the South Africa, you see the South African Economic Commission. When you go to the East, you see the COMESA and the rest. So everywhere around the world, regional cooperation, regional integration is the best way to spell growth and development. Now, in Nigeria, I want to say again, Dr. Fayemi, thank you for that, for the wonderful work you have been doing. Our founding fathers, I know somebody mentioned Awolowo and the rest, they actually understood the power of regional cooperation. Now, In the past, when we were growing up, well, I think for me to say this, maybe in the next 1.5 years, I will also be like a doctor. And when we were growing up, what we were used to is, within Nigeria, regions competing among themselves. So what has changed? The question is, what has changed? What has changed? You see the Western region known for development, and in fact, the result of that competition is what we are witnessing today. This cocoa house is outcome from Odua investment. So the question is, what has to that? Establishing regional development commission is not for political reason, not at all. Because if we understand the concept of development, we know that we come to know that it is important for you to cooperate. Because development simply means you are pushing toward a state whereby there will be shared prosperity. Welfare of people will be boosted. Now, I remember, again, growing up, you say, the West, they are so educated. And no wonder when you see the rate of development that was coming up in the West, so it's because the founding fathers, they had that vision. They knew where they were going. Now, the same way, development is actually based on its outcome of competition. If give me a country where there is no healthy competition, you not see fast development, because competition is leads to what it brings incentives, it brings creativity. So when we talk of a commission like this, now, and I want to say again, kudos to Down Commission. Well, thank that you say you are apolitical. What a regional development commission is meant to be, it's meant to be a think tank. A think tank is like a powerhouse that will generate idea, deliver it to the government, and then the government will run with that idea. So if we are to go by that, then what is the role of the Down Commission? And then how can it be a model for other to emulate? As I said, a commission like this is supposed to be a development think tank, generate idea, in fact, sell it to your principal. It's like principal agent relationship. Sell it to your principal, and then they have the money, they have the political will, they should be able to push it through. Now, quickly, development, I'm not going to political interest, I want to focus on economic development. When you want to achieve meaningful and sustainable economic development as a region, you must have what is your mission, what is your vision, then what are your strategic orientation, strategic goal to get you to where you want to be. Now, as I said again, this was what was driving people like Shiva Fayemi Awolowo. He was able to vision what in the next 50 years, in the next year, where do we want Southwest to be? So that vision is still there, and we still have people that are still running with that vision. One of them is Dr. Kayode Fayemi. We need to look at the constrained state of the region. You have Lagos. Today, I was just checking what is the latest figure of GDP of Nigeria. Lagos still has the highest GDP in the country. Okay, in terms of revenue generation, Lagos has the highest revenue generation in this country, and Lagos belongs to part of the Southwest. Now, in fact, when you take the first 10 leading states in the country, 3 of Southwestern states are part of them. You have Lagos, you have Ondo, then you have Ogun. Now, when you have, in fact, that is a very be something that we can leverage on. Now, what the Dunn Commission needs to do is look at how there are what we call drivers of economic growth, drivers of development, engines of growth. Then you look at them. So, which of them is not behaving well? Is lacking in our in our region. So, how can we push them? Then, when you develop the idea, sell it to your principal, and then you run with it. Then, before you know it, then we come back to those olden days. In fact, I refer to those days as golden age of Nigeria. Now, what Regional Development Commission should be what everybody should be looking up to, because why? We know that once we have it, it is going to help us in every aspect of our development region. Now, let me say this. Somebody said infrastructure. You cannot achieve meaningful development if you have poor infrastructure. Now, thank God for the new train, something that we now have from Lagos to Ibadan. Now, as a region, can we come together? Now, it's now become so easy for me to travel from Lagos to from Ibadan to Lagos and back. Now, I have a lot of rubber. I have rubber plantation in Ondo. I have cocoa plantation around Ondo. I have what do you call it, palm oil plantation in Ondo. Then when you go to Ekiti, what do we have there? So in Ogun State is very close to Lagos. So it has industrial hub just like Lagos. Now, when you look at that as a region, what type of economy are we looking to create? Are we looking toward becoming an agro-halite based region? Are we looking toward becoming an industrial hub region? So there must be that deep thinking. Then, if that is the case, how do we get there? How do we get there? I don't have to ask the farmer that is growing rubber in Ondo to bring it to Lagos for all this and plastic industry. No, all I need to do is, can we set up a mini agro-halite industry there, owned by the region? That's why it will do investment. When you talk of development, it requires a huge sum of capital, which a state may not be able to afford. Now, some years ago, Lagos partnered with KB, and they came up with I don't know what they call the rice. Why will Lagos go to KB for God's sake? And this is what the Commission to be able to come up with. Now, in Ogun State, what can we leverage on to ensure that we bring we are able to fasten development around that area? In Ondo, in Ekiti, now somebody mentioned comparative advantage. These are the things we need to look at. All the states are not equal, but no state that does not have its own advantage. What do we have? What can we have that we can leverage on? Now, this is the work of Dunn Commission. Now, you are supposed to serve as think tank group. Now, when you do that, you don't have to have all your people everywhere. Now, there's nowhere you go in each of these states that you don't have good research institutions. We can team up with them. This is where the Tamangam operation comes in. So in the area of infrastructure, how do we ensure that we have good road network that connect from Ondo to Ekiti to Osun, so that it becomes so easy for us to move people and goods? Because when you are not just talking of moving goods, moving people and goods, then this way, look at what Lagos is doing. Look at what Lagos is doing. Now you now have blue rain running. Now, I lived in Washington. I work in Washington, but I was living in Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia. It's a different state. It's a different state. But once I leave Alexandria, my train stopped just at the bottom, at the basement of my office in Washington. We can also we can think of how can we bring about that type of development. Now, because you are a think tank and you are apolitical, you work with your principal. We can even if the state they don't have enough fund, we can work with development partners. They can trust you more than they will trust state government, because when the state government they will come, politics and change what is to as a regional development commission, they know you are you are independent, and so they can trust you. So when you do that, you become a model that every other regional development commission in the country will be able to copy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We've heard speaker after speaker, a fine collection of panelists here, and we've spoken on different aspects of regional development, from the management of public expectations to transitioning from theory to practice, policy integration strategies, and of course, a reimagination of Dawn Commission and other Southwest regional development commissions. Thank you so much for your efforts. Thank you for being a part of this event. Within us today, we have quite a number of individuals who have left their footprints within the domain of not just the academia, but politics, civil society, even civil disobedience. I'm not mentioning any names, you know. So while we have those who are on the theoretical side, we have those on the practical side as well. And my DG, because I'm not old enough to introduce them, so my DG will do the honors of.
Don't listen to him, Maurice. Thank you. Thank you, Excellency, for giving us your time. We want to move very fast from here. Honorable Wale Oshun, for those who don't know, was once the chief whip of the House of Reps. I think it was the house that the Google junta dissolved, Sonny Abacha. He was the chief whip then. I'm glad he's also here today because I tell him all the time, Dawn Commission is also his baby. And I'm sure he's excited to see days like this. More importantly, he has, you know, I used to live in UK, and once you get in trouble with police, they will say, he has previous experience. You know, he has previous experience. And I know that he has one of two things he wants to share. He was once on the board of the Northeast Development Commission. And I'm sure I've had to intervene so that he can, because he has a birthday to attend in Lagos, but thanks to Buhari, the road is now 1 hour. If it's Biodun that is driving, it's 45 minutes. But for sane people, it's 1 hour. So before he escapes to the birthday, because I pleaded with him that please come. And I'm glad he came from Lagos to this and he's going back again to Lagos for the birthday. So, Honorable Wale Oshun, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, all. I will say happy birthday to our brother, our friend, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. You know, academics. Academics in academics is a different ball game when you have academics in governance. I mean, many people, in fact, some of my friends in academics don't find it funny when I have a critique of my experience in the federal service and all that. But Dr. Kayode Fayemi changed all that in my mind when I met him, because he's an academic who has proved himself in academics and also has proved himself in governance. So I want to acknowledge that and say happy birthday to you, sir. and may you live long in good health, and may your shadow never grow less, because you continue to contribute to the growth of our society. But I just want to say a word on the regional development commissions. You see, how did they evolve? The first two that came evolved because there was crisis, oil pollution, militancy in the South, and then, of course, the Boko Haram event in the Northeast. Those were the two major: militancy, oil pollution, leading to economic crisis, then religion, and of course, political crisis. That was what gave birth to the first two development commissions. And my own experience or my own take had always been that this commission should not exist for more than a given time. 5 years, 10 years, maximum 12.5 years, to solve the specific problem that they were established to resolve. But in Nigeria, everything is politics. And that is why you can now have all the commissions that are being created. But should that be the way? Our academics can help us to examine it. But I want to say with hindsight that there's usually that lack of capacity. No, because they are having a lot of functions. I mean, a lot of resources coming to them. Your VAT is asked somewhere to pay the commissions. Of course, all the commissions now can say, yes, we will all partake. It's the national cake. But is that the purpose of the emergency development commissions? For me, I would rather see a pursuit of the political regions, which of course also comes with its own governance. And then that is when you can be talking of the western region of Awolowo. But you never get it with the kind of commissions that we are now talking about. But in the meantime, since it is the only way to go, or is the things that is happening to all of us now, and we also have had our own Western Region Commission created, I can only say that John would have to tie his loin, start looking ahead on how to guide. But if you ask me, I would say even the Western Region Commission should not handle more than rail, transportation, power, and possibly health, rather than, I mean, even the audit reports coming from some of the commissions, the amount of waste. I mean, and it's not just about corruption alone, you are talking of capacity, the capacity to manage. I will rest my case for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And lastly, I would like to call on Sir Gbenga Adibusi. Or just for historical purposes, for those who might not know, Sir Adibusi is one of those who actually suffered for our democracy. Dr. Fayemi will attest to that. But part of the gory stories we had was that he was hung upside down. Hung upside down. And not just him, but his beautiful wife as well. During the days of, wasn't Sergeant Rogers, it was the other guy. So that he's standing here, it's not just for ceremony purposes, but historical purposes.
for those who don't know. Sir,
good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Kayode Fayemi, a cherished Aburo, really. All protocols duly observed. I won't dwell on our experience. He also contributed immensely to our, should we say emancipation? Are we emancipated? Really? A very happy birthday. Long life and more blessings, my brother. And I'd also like to appreciate your beautiful wife, who is a veritable asset to all of us. I must appreciate the speakers from the keynote to the discussants. And most especially, I have been encouraged tremendously by the youngest here, Ijaya, who touched on virtually every point that I had noted. And I wish you great things ahead. Dawn Commission is little known. So perhaps it's good that we're having this session today. And it's also appropriate that one of the main drivers of the creation of the development agenda for Western Nigeria, which now needed the Dawn Commission to drive. The work already done by Dawn Commission is enough to keep the regional, Southwest Regional Development Commission busy for the next 20 years. Not just conceptualization, but detailed planning, including implementation planning, including the frameworks for the partnerships that will be required. So what then do we need to do? Dawn Commission has not succeeded as we had imagined it would be able to do at the conception or at inception, because there were some assumptions that we made. You could say that they were reasonable assumptions, because who in our minds wouldn't want development and the kind of prosperity that we witnessed during the First Republic, especially? Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to be associated with those kinds of strides? We were quite certain that the resources were there. I would admit that lately the capacity has become stifling. So the human capacity development is now a major issue. However, what we didn't quite understand was that you cannot have the kind of regional economic integration that we envisaged without first having truly, genuinely shared vision. We assumed, like I said, that vision of Cocoa House. Is there any building that's taller than Cocoa House in Western region today? 60 years. after. It's frightening. So what have I done with my life, you know, and my generation? What have we accomplished? So even when we had the opportunity in 2011 to now conceptualize and start designing a framework for a great leap forward, to borrow the Chinese terminology, which perhaps is not so appropriate in this context. The idea that we could have a regional rail network was so clear, and we had a name for it. I mean, Chairman, Dr. Fayemi, Great Western Rail.
Great Western Rail.
What would it take to actualize it? The planning has been so well detailed as at now. Why haven't we done it? Power, also fully planned. The DG reported the health framework has been acknowledged as a fantastic document. It's in hand, it's available. Education, technology. Dr. Fayemi initiated something really central in solving this problem, and that's the open government initiative. Without transparency and accountability, you cannot have peer review. Without peer review, you can't benchmark, you can't set goals properly. No goal setting is possible. AU championed the APRM. Nigeria domesticated and made an attempt at the SPRM, that's the state peer review mechanism. It fell flat because you must have transparency and accountability. And that singular move of moving to the open government platform that Dr. Fayemi initiated would have enabled us to leapfrog incredibly. How many states have signed on to that? I think that is where we can begin to really monitor and start scoring governments, because that is what will show the preparedness for the needed collaboration that would now produce the integration for economic growth and ultimately economic development. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful submission. So the last comment that will come, I just want to remind us of, okay, I read in Professor Ladipo Adamolekun's autobiography, I remember. And it's so funny that he said he delivered lectures in 2 places. I won't mention the names of so there are top people at the place. Is there one person that the very VIP at 2 events? One person obviously did not follow his presentation. So when he was called upon to speak, he was going through to another level. Why the other person, though did not agree with him, but shows that he actually took notes. So in order for Professor Aide not to write his own biography and say that Dr. Fayemi did not follow his his presentation, so we'll call Dr. Fayemi to please make his own comment.
Thank you very much. Our elders in the room, distinguished academics, the Dawn Commission team, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not usually lost for words. I'm a politician and a teacher to both. So you're not likely to have a teacher who is lost for words. You've seen them. Yeah. But I'm truly, truly humbled by this celebration, which is truly in the best manner possible. Anyone who knows me will know I'm not an Owambe celebrant. I don't indulge in that. But this for me is worth its weight in gold. And sitting down since they started, listening to Professor Ayede and all of our discussants reflect on this trajectory, regional development, not just in our own environment, but also extrapolating from experiences elsewhere. I just feel a little sad at missed opportunities, because we have Professor Falawe here, a development economist, who would confirm that in 1979, Nigeria's GDP was higher than China's GDP. China, which today has in multiples of trillions. And anyone who has followed the trajectory of our development story would also know that Western Nigeria in 1959, when Chief Obafemi Awolowo completed his second term in office, had a GDP that was comparable to some so-called mature democracy Western countries, and had actually taken bolder steps in establishing things that were later emulated and followed by some Western countries. So 60 years after, if we're still at this juncture of arrested development, there is really nothing to celebrate. What we were trying to re-envision, again, Shea said that that story is not well known. It's true, it's not well known. Maybe it's our fault. When we started the Afenifere Renewal Group that gave birth to the Yoruba Academy. Yoruba Academy still has its headquarters here in Ibadan, and commissioned the study to envision a new development agenda. And I'm sure somewhere in Don's offices here, they must have that roadmap and that strategy development paper that we produced that led to the first meeting that I called of Southwest governors in October 2011. We had a meeting in July to discuss the Dawn document, the draft document. God rest his soul. Before Farmer Kinwa was our foot soldier, traversing the length and breadth. Of course, the drivers, our chairman, Honorable Wale Oshun, and many of the academics, who worked with us on this. So many of them who would also come to my village in Nation to hold retreats. Professor Wale Adebanwi is now somewhere in, I think, the United States. Dr. Charles Akinola is in with the Minister of Marine Economy. These were the titans. Dr. Adebola, who just left here. I think Auntie Sade was also part of that. So many very driven people. And from time to time, we will draw in Professor Akinkugbe, who will come and give us talks about that era. And Professor Akimabo Gunje, who was involved with Opticom in the Awolowo era, and shared very clear pathways how to proceed with what we were imagining at the time. And we eventually convened a meeting in Ado-Ekiti in October when I was governor. And all my colleagues, Governor Mimiko, Governor Aregbesola, Governor Fashola, they all came to that meeting, that very first meeting, where we birthed the Dawn agenda. We also then decided that we must all have a ministry responsible for regional development and intergovernmental relations. So we set up a ministry. My successor was the very first commissioner for regional development in Ekiti, Biodun Oyebanji. And we had others. Governor Ademodi later, Professor Ademodi became the one in Ondo. I can't quite recall the other colleagues in the other states, but there was a roadmap. And yes, commitment was not at the same level, but no governor was uninterested in how to rekindle regional development as a vehicle for national transformation. And I suppose even the approach that is now being used of superimposing regional development commission from above was well-intentioned, because yes, our chairman was right. Honorable Oshun said the first two were emergency. Yes, they were emergency, particularly the Northeast Development Commission. But so if you recall, the manifesto we wrote for APC in 2015, one of the key ideas in that manifesto is that we would have regional development commissions in every zone. It was in our 2015 manifesto. So it wasn't a surprise when it was just that the exigency of the time made it inevitable for us to start with the Northeast Development Commission. And from the lesson, we haven't quite done that well. Honorable Oshun can write a book on that. Having served directly in the furnace. But I just want to say that I particularly like the critical success factors that Professor Ide outlined for us, which should help us perhaps in ensuring that what comes out of the Southwest Development Commission, when it is eventually signed into law and established, is different from what we've seen in other zones. And I think that's really the key point to take away from what has been said by Professor Ide and the discussants, that there is no one-size-fits-all regional development approach. It is your own objective needs in your area and the resources that you are able to deploy that should determine the structure and ultimately the impact of what one does in one's particular environment. Because it's always going to be asymmetrical, and that's a major problem that federalism scholars always talk about. Asymmetrical federalism leads to lopsided development process. And I do think this may yet be our best route to accelerated development if taken seriously, actually. It's like beginning again and returning to those broad ideas that informed the founding fathers' agenda. And I think, unfortunately, politics might have gotten in the way of how you manage these things. And we've seen it with NDDC, we've seen it with NEDC. I'm afraid we're going to see it with all of them if you not only impose them from above, although we try to, when the idea of Southwest Development Commission was about to gain traction, my brother, the late governor of Ondo State, was our chair in the Southwest Governors Forum then. We tried to rescue what was being discussed and set up a task force. In fact, Dawn Commission served in that task force that we set up to produce a technical document, which eventually informed what became, I mean, I've read the act, it's pretty much taken from what we wrote. I think that bill writing process was chaired by my own Attorney General, Wale Fakonda, and all the other Attorney Generals were involved in it. And then Charles Akinola, as Chief of Staff in Osun, also chaired the second technical committee. So maybe if we pay attention and we allow Dawn to do its work, and sometimes Dawn should also be maybe rebellious and not too compliant. I recall when I was governor, I used to take on that role to harass my colleagues about Dawn. I'm not so sure there's any governor that is doing that now, because they are all consumed by their own local challenges. My own governor is probably better placed to do it because he was here at the origin of Dawn. He was my own representative here at the time, and he has at least historical and institutional memory of what Dawn was set up to achieve. But again, I must say that Dipo was relentless. In fact, if it's not for the work that Dawn did, Lagos will still have maintained its Gedigbe-Lekowa approach to regional development. But because of Dawn's work, Governor Ambode, that credit goes to him, joined us and became, for the first time in 60 years of Odua's history, Lagos became a member of Odua Investment Company, paid up the share capital, became involved in all of the work that Odua has been doing. And since then, they've sent very good people to Odua's board as representative of Lagos. This is a fundamental shift. If you know the mentality of the average Lagosian, I mean, apologies to my chairman, who does not necessarily fall into that. But the average Lagosian has this feeling that, okay, well, they are, okay, thank you. We are the modernizers, they're the traditionalists. So let's try and enlighten and civilize them. But on this, I think Lagos is fully on board. And if you look at the figures that Prof gave us about GDP, Lagos can be a trigger for what then happens in the rest of the region and then the rest of the country. If we do what is required and we make development the focus, not politics. And that's what we've tried to do with Dawn, to insist that even the very first Dawn initiative, I mean, Governor Mimiko was Labour, I was ACN, Governor Aregbesola was ACN, Governor Fashola was ACN, but Governor Daniels was PDP, and Governor Akala was PDP when we started. So it was almost a balance. If you want to link Labour to us, he was closer to us then before he went to the other side, PDP. So that helped us to formulate the idea that the commission is not neutral, but it must be non-partisan. It is for development. There's no neutrality about that. But we must look for the best ways and work with researchers, development specialists to arrive at the point that we wanted to get to. And for me, that is why the notion of political RDCs that my Arewa brother talked about is one we must be sensitive to in order to achieve the ultimate result, rather than turn them to drain pipes for political patronage, which again, one of our discussants highlighted, because even the world itself is changing. We're seeing that change all around us. And that insularity is bound to affect even our own development agenda. But we first have to be clear about what is it that we want for ourselves. When we do that, then it's easier for us to then socialize our younger professors and Gen Zs to the direction of travel and bring everyone to that side. So, Dawn Commission, the job is not yet done. As a matter of fact, I think the job is just starting. I know when we did the rail plan, we brought Planet Projects. I think that was the group we brought to do the rail plan for Southwest. And that plan is still sitting somewhere now. We really shouldn't be so bent on this being implemented by government. It's time to begin to sell these ideas to others who can take it up and implement it. If government wants to come along, great. But I don't think it should falter on the altar of reluctance by political leaders if really what we're about is development, ultimately. So for me, all of those initiatives in the strategic plan for power, some of those things we were fighting for when we started, which we then took to the National Assembly, they've become facts of our governance system now. Now we have decentralized electricity law. We didn't have it then. We were pushing for it then. We were talking about regional grids, not even mini grids. There was no mini or micro grids in those days. The idea was not present then, but we were talking about regional grids. That why can't we have our own Southwest energy pool to serve our zone? And then if there's need for areas of cooperation with North Central or Southeast or whatever zone, then we also work on that and negotiate. Now we have laws backing it. And I know at least 3 or 4 states now control regulation, distribution. My own state, Ekiti, we're doing it. And I know a number of states have also signed up to this. Enugu, maybe Kaduna and others. So these things are possible. And I believe that we need to just put more vigor, put more drive, and Dawn Commission needs to work a lot more closely with academia, really, because we can't have this pool of talent. I know you already do it, but we need to do more of that. There were studies that when Dawn started, in fact, I remember setting up a meeting between DIPO and the World Bank team because they wanted to help us with a visit to India to look at the regional economic corridor in India. as a model for how to develop Lagos Ibadan Expressway. Now it is evangelization, NASFAT, and others that are, and Redeem and all the others that are there. But really, now the rail is there. The road is good. It could be a major corridor for economic activity, which in some senses it is. I see a number of Chinese company, of course, Chi Farms and a number of other, but it could do a lot more than it's doing. And we can have this across the entire Southwest belt and across the entire country. So I just want to thank you for using my birthday as an opportunity to reflect on where we are and where we really ought to be as a development entity. And to say that for me, this is about service and duty. It's not about office. So in or out of office, I'll continue to be actively involved. Last week, I was with Professor Aide. My old organization convened a national conference on democracy. But when people read about it in the newspaper, you would think it was some politicians who gathered to just attack the ruling government. Nothing of the sort happened. These were commission papers from eggheads like Professor Aide and others to just come and reflect on what is the state of our democracy and where do we go from here. But the people who really gave the papers, nobody has heard what he said. It is the few interjections by the political figures that has dominated the airwaves. And that's the tragedy of our media, because they just distort things. What should be taken as serious is left in abeyance, and we go after tittle-tattle, which really doesn't help anyone. But then the struggle must continue. Thank you very much.
Hello. Please sit down. Please sit down. Sit down. It says that in celebration of His Excellency Dr. John Kayode Fayemi, CON, on his 60th birthday, presented with deepest appreciation and highest esteem, Dr. Fayemi, a visionary leader, scholar, and statesman whose unwavering dedication to democracy, good governance, and the development of Yoruba people and Nigeria at large continues to inspire generations. On this special occasion of your 60th birthday, Dawn Commission celebrates your legacy of service, leadership, and transformative impact. Gratitude and best wishes.
Sorry, sir. The Odwa DMD, yeah, Odwa DMD sent his commendation Odwa DMD. Unfortunately, you cannot make it. So.
Yeah, but we saw. Okay.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. Just
all right. Thank you very much.
So I'll call on Barrister Titi Asabia for the vote of thanks. Please, round of applause for Barrister Titi Asabia. Barrister Titi Asabia is the head of legal and compliance.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please, I would like to crave our indulgence to please stand up and let's sing a birthday song. I would like us to do that in a standing position. while the celebrant takes a seat. So I'm going to do that at count of 3. Please, those that have beautiful voices, let us hear it. 1, 2, go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. God bless you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you. Yes, Lord. May the good Lord bless you. Thank you very much. Let's have our seats. Thank you, everyone who has been seated here for the past few hours. And in this intellectual and development discourse, a lot has been said here, no doubt. It's an eye-opening for us at the Commission that we still have a lot to do. There are a lot of things that has been mentioned here by the keynote speaker. He talked about some of the challenges that will come our way. He talks about some success factor, which actually resonates with us. So we are taking this away, trying to sit down, re-strategize, relaunch, and it's also a reaffirmation that we're not just coming here to resume in the morning and leave by 5 p.m. There are people out there who sees what we do, who appreciate us, and who also expect us to do more. So no doubt, this conversation has been very insightful and very, very interesting. So on behalf of the Dawn team, under the leadership of Dr. Shaye Oyelaye, I want to thank everyone, particularly the celebrants, and also everyone, the intellectuals, the academia who had come from different places. We want to appreciate you for all the things you have said here. We want to thank you for your time. And I want to also thank Dr. Fayemi for making our time here, because as a Thursday evening, we were not sure if you'll be here physically. But for the fact that you made it here today, we are so glad. Thank you so much. And we wish everyone a safe trip back to your different destination. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, I want to remind Oba Ayedun Ade Olayinka, Obanla of Adumula, Obanla Adumula of Yoruba. Please. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Outside.